yourself?
I am a street performer. I've been street performing since the early 80s. Which is whenever that was, like 83. I did my first show in Covent Garden. Since then, I've travelled around the world. I live in Australia now, and it's my birthday.
Oh, congratulations! Is it rude to ask you how old you
doesn't
are?
know that. That's my. Well, we'll have a guess as we go along.
Okay, fair enough. I won't do it now. Then I'll let the ideas
we'll
mull
keep
around
dropping that in. We'll keep dropping that in. Yeah.
So what do you do? I mean, I know you do, but some people don't. So
what do I do?
Yeah.
I do nothing at the moment. I see if I can grow a beard, because I reckon by December I might get a Santa job if I keep this going.
That's my plan. If we're quarantine.
Because I haven't done anything. Well, in show-wise, this is probably the longest since I've not done a show in my life, since I was 15.
Wow.
I started off as a magic kid. I was a kid doing magic, and then I went garden and learned how to juggle. I juggle. I did some escape shows back then. Walked on the rope, juggled, flames, and basically had a few tricks up my sleeve, and bag of tricks, started traveling around the world, and now I live in Melbourne, where I am right now.
Okay, and so you began in London?
10 o'clock in the morning. In London. I did my first street show I was 15, and it was on the East Piazza.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the East Piazza now, I believe, is a musician's pitch.
Is it? Yeah. Well, it wasn't really a pitch. It was just I was 15. But that wasn't the first I earned on the street. I actually performed on the West Piazza before that. I went to Covent Garden, and when I was 15. I was going to say the year how old I am, so I'm just going to say stop there. But Yes, I was sitting on the steps of the West Piazza, I remember, and Shakespeare was doing a show. Did you ever meet him?
No.
Ulick George Daniel Allen from the Green Accident Magical Theatre. We all knew him as Shakespeare because he did Midsummer's Night Dream, the dying scene in Midsummer's Night's Dream. He had the most amazing voice of them all. He could orate from the West Piazza, and you'd hear him on the East Piazza. And he'd go out there and start the show and do the I am a Jew, have I not a Jew, eyes, ears, blood, or I not believe, blah, 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 the speech there from that day, and get a crowd. And then I was watching this guy, and then he got some people, he wanted some people out to be different characters in the play. And no one would be the lion. And he was... I think it wasn't a really big day. It might be one of them hot summer's days, when people just sit on the steps and don't give a shit. And no one would be the lion. Yeah, and then I just went, I'll be the bloody lion. And I just got up off the step and I walked onto the cobbles, and we reenacted the play. I was the lion. Someone, I can't remember the whole play, but then he had a melodrama thing going on with the play. I was the lion in the show. I think there were 2 or 3 volunteers. Then after the show, when we all took our bow, he whispered to us, he said, meet me behind there at the back, under the arch, by the pillars. So he finished the show, he collected the hat, and we went under the pillars, and we squatted down, and he took all right, back then it was pound notes and coins, right? So he took the pound notes or whatever he had, and coins, and the small coins, the 5p's, 2p's, 1p's, I guess, or maybe it was just a 2p's and 1p's, he shoved to the side, chopped him into, say it was 3 of us, made him into 3 piles, split them up, and gave us, each volunteer in the show got that little pile of coins.
Wow, that's lovely.
So basically, that was the first money I ever earned on the street in Shakespeare's show, and I've never seen anyone else do that. The volunteer, I was just a punter, a 15-year-old kid, and I got paid whatever. I don't know whatever he was in it, but I was. Yeah, I saw him, and then I saw Dave Brown do a show.
Okay, and who's Dave Brown? Bit of
Dave Brown was a magician from Newcastle, and he used to start the show. He'd just have a bag, and he would throw his rings out. Just squat down. He had this sports bag, and he'd start throwing his rings out, making magic rings and making clangy sounds. And then a ring would get caught to the bag, and the bag would go. Then a ring would get caught to his braces, and then he'd get into chaos. That's how he got the crowd. And then he did a routine with he tied his thumbs together. It's a classic magician's routine, a thumb tie. And he did it with toilet seats instead of rings. So they catch the toilet seat, okay, and then suddenly that would be on his arm, but his thumbs are tied together. I saw him that day, and I got talking. I'm at the end going, "Hello, my name's Nick. I'm a little kid," and he was very kind to me. He bought me a cup of tea and a cake down at used to be called Fens then, which was to the right of the inside pitch if you're performing, right? And we were down there, and we did some card tricks, and I went down. I was at school, remember? And then the next week, I went down there with a little act, and I tried a show by myself on the East Piazza and made 10p, and that was how my career started on the streets. Yes.
So did you spend all week after thinking, oh, I want to do this, I want to be one of these performers, they seem like nice people, they're doing interesting stuff?
Yeah, well, Matt, I was already doing some little shows around my neighborhood, kids shows. I was already making, I don't know how much I charged, 5 quid, 3 quid, 10 quid or something, going on my bicycle doing kids shows. And I'd already worked out that I'd worked out the system of how you're meant to live your life was fucked as far as I'm concerned. Right? I was smart enough to pass the exams, and I was brave enough to get to deal with fights at school, and so I didn't fit in either category. And I realized that as far as I was concerned, it was not what I wanted out of life, let's put it that way. So I'd worked that thing,
get a job, get a house, this kind of thing.
Yeah, all that. So I'd worked that out, and then when I discovered Covent Garden at 15, I saw these guys, and I'm going, hang on, they're going out there. They're getting a crowd of people around them. They're getting their ego stroked, and they're collecting money. And there's no bank, there's no boss, and I thought, well, this is great. So I started doing that at 15. And then while I was at school, my friends would be working in packing shelves or whatever they were doing, jobs, and I was going down to Covent Garden at the weekends, shows, and had all these older performers, and I was the kid who had to go and get the teas, and I took the shit, but they like me.
I believe the phrase is pitch bitch.
Is that what they know? I was never a pitch bitch. I never got on my knees and bobbed.
Fair enough.
But they liked me because I think they like me anyway. They can let us know if they're watching this down there. But I used to practice. I'd always try different things out. Tony Anthony, I could juggle 3 balls. I remember Tony Anthony showed me, or Tony Green he was called then, showed me how to do 3 balls in one hand. I remember saying to him on the pitch one day, I said, how'd you do that? And he showed me, and the next day I was doing it. But what I loved was we were all underneath the church there, the portico. Everyone was practicing. Everyone, all day long, you just practice stuff and talk to each other, and then you could practice stuff and then go out onto the cobbles and try a show out of what you've learned and watch shows all day. It was like running away to imagine that, a 15-year-old kid running away to the circus, but I ran away to the street, and I had a family. Everyone cared for each other, and it became the surrogate family, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things I think storage, perhaps, as time gone, is kind of robbed away from the pitch a little bit. Is that thing that the back of the pitch, the queue, the space is such a communal, learning, sharing environment.
Yeah, when I went back there a few years ago, and I saw when the storage thing was there, when I first saw storage, and yeah, I noticed that wasn't happening anymore because it was great. You just hang out all day long, like we'd sleep there at night to get a pitch. So you're
This
there.
Is the 12 o'clock shows, yeah.
This is you're there. You're just there at crazy times in the morning to get a show.
Starting on at midnight kind of thing.
Yeah, and the acts then it was Chris Lynham, Tim Batt, Mike Mulcairn. There were Terry Sinclair used to do shows. The musicians would perform there on the West Piazza. Terry, Captain Keno. Who else was around? Jay Arthur Rank. He was fantastic.
Who's Jay Arthur? I don't know him.
Jay Arthur. That was the first place I lived. His place. I lived in a cupboard when I left home, in a cupboard in a squat in Chelsea at Arthur's. Arthur was, his real name was Arthur Miller, but he called himself Jay Arthur, as in Jay Arthur Wank. And he was a tall, skinny geezer with long curly hair, played guitar, never played a cover, ever. Only played originals, and they were very good songs. And he would go out there with a microphone and play the guitar. And it was fantastic. And he took me under his wing, and he had a squat in Chelsea, him, and there was a lady called Annalisa, who was a bottler. Annalisa Gregg, who could speak like 8 languages. She was a fantastic bottler. Wow. And they lived there in this squat, which was a big old house in Chelsea by some gardens, like a mansion, those big, like mansions.
Yeah. Some millionaire's holiday home.
And it was a squat, and it was full of artists. And there was a ballroom there with chandeliers and stuff. And I used to hang out there. Then Arthur said, "Why don't you move in?" And there was a cupboard. It was big enough for a single bed with about 6 inches on one side and about 1.5 feet by the door. And I was overjoyed. I've got out of my mum's house and I'm living with all these crazy artists in this squat in Chelsea, even though I was living in a cupboard. And so people would do shows.
Did you bring ladies back to your cupboard?
I was 15. I was 16, so I wouldn't call them ladies.
Okay, girls, yeah.
Girls, yeah. I can't remember, mate. There's a lot of things that disappear over the years from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So yeah, there were great acts. And Sid Rasputin, John McKenna. Have you heard of these acts? You know these acts.
If you name a lot of acts, describe who they are, just so people who don't. I'll describe a few acts back then where there was little 15-year-old me watching all day long. John McKenna, whose show I can say verbatim right now, he was an actor, and he used to go out there dressed in a wetsuit with the sleeves cut off, and it was held together by giant nappy pins. And the Beatles on it. The Beatles help, and then it was cut off at just above the knees. This wetsuit. He had flippers on, a flat cap, and he'd go out there with a blue bucket of water and a briefcase on it. And he had a loud voice like Shakespeare as well, like Ulick. He's a very good actor. He's an actor and a boxer now, and he would go out there, get his crowd, and then the whole thing was he was going to escape from the Magician's Note as an electronic release. It's a loop of metal with 2 chains off it that you get locked up in, and you can get out very quickly. He had some lines like he'd pull out the chain, the manacles, just call them the manacles, and then he'd pull out one of his lines was this, he'd pull out these 2 locks, and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, these locks are not normal locks. These locks are from Bow Street Police Station, which is just over there for you tourists. So these are," and he'd get a lady out. That's it. And you get a lady out. She's holding the 2 locks, the two padlocks like this,
And so these locks are from Bow Street Police Station. They are bow locks. Can you please hold the bow locks? Are they or are they not the heaviest bow locks you have ever felt? So she would do that, and then he'd get her to tie him up in these things, and then send her off, and in the bow locks, and then send him off, then send her off, and then he'd say, I don't want, he goes, I know what you're thinking, you know, this could be dodgy. And he says, I don't want 1, I don't want 2, I don't want 3, I want 7 of the strongest 5-year-olds here today. And then he'd get these 5 kids out, or 7 kids out, and they're gonna pull the chain to prove it's real. And he'd say, I know what you people are thinking. So he's just, before he does this, he's got the kids by. He goes, I know what you people are thinking. Here I am, dressed in rubber, into bondage, with children, in the middle of the West End of London. And what do you people do? Watch. And then he get tired, get the kids to test it, and then they go away. Then he would say, Harry Houdini escaped from this underneath a big water thing, blah, 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 blah. And then he'd make a gap in the crowd, make a great big gap in the crowd as if something's coming through. And they go, and then, so all the people are looking, thinking what's going to come through the crowd. And he'd say, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. And they all start clapping. And then he would take the briefcase off the bucket, and he'd say, put your hands together for the freezing cold bucket, the blue bucket of freezing cold lukewarm water. And they all clap. And then he would say, I'm going to stick my head in the bucket and escape from the manacles. To which his line was, because it's so long ago and I can remember, I've watched it so many times, then he's going to stick his head in the bucket, and he said, okay, my head's going to be in the bucket, I won't be able to hear you, so you've got to be loud. So English people, I want you to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Spanish people, I want you to go 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. The Germans, I'd like to go Einstein. And then he says, and our French cousins, I'd like you to go home.
Oh.
That was his line. And then he stuck his head in a bucket of water, escaped from the manacles, and that was his show. 40-minute show. Fantastic.
Sounds
show.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That was John McKenna's show. Then there was Tim Batt, who would dress up like a businessman, and he'd come out doing hat tricks. He'd finish standing on or get a kid to stand on a tray. He was a very good juggler. He'd get a kid to stand on a tray of eggs, and he'd spin plates. The kid would hold the plates. A third plate would go in the kid's trouser top with the stick coming out of the plate, and the kid would stand on eggs. Mike Mulcairn, who I heard James talk about the other day, or someone talked about Mike the other day, he went out with
Paddy, baby.
Paddy, I think. Yeah, Mike went out dressed in pajamas with a case with nothing in it but a balloon, and he'd start point with the balloon, and then that was get a crowd, and then he had the invisible snake and stuff. So there was all this myriad of really bizarre acts. And Billy the Bean, an act. If anyone knows, I'd love to know who this guy was. I don't know where he came from. I don't know where he went to. But this was the act, and it was one of the greatest street acts I've ever seen. This dude was dressed up in some sort of superhero costume, right, like with a cape and stuff like that. And he had a bag. He got a crowd, tall, skinny guy. And the premise was he had a can of baked beans. And he said Billy the Bean was trapped in the can with all the other beans, and we had to release Billy. Then he got a kid out, and out of the side of his sports bag, there was a stick sticking out. That's all you just saw, this like bit of wood. And he got a kid out, and the kid had to grab the stick, the can's there, and he pulled the bag away, and it was a big sledgehammer, right? So the kid can't pick up a sledgehammer, right, because it's so heavy. So then the whole thing goes on and on and on, and he would hold the kid and the sledgehammer and then get the countdown 10 down to 1 just to release Billy and smash the can.
with a sledgehammer and beans everywhere, baked beans everywhere. And then he'd reach down, lift up a bean and go, Billy! And the crowd would go nuts. And then he'd go, what? Oh, that's not Billy. And then he'd scramble round looking for the real Billy and find Billy the Bean. I love that show. I saw that show two or three times. I don't know who he was. I don't know where he came from. I don't know where he went to. So
I couldn't imagine seeing shows like that nowadays. I couldn't imagine walking out on the piazza and seeing it.
Oh, that's all the show. Then there was Charlie. Of course, he's still there at 106 years old now. He was a skill. He had skill. Charlie the Chaplain. Alex Standridge was around. He was the kid back my age, and he was we were the two kids, Alex and I. But he was on the unicycle juggling like a maniac, you know, and I was there trying to do my tricks. And Tony Green was there. Keno, of course, was there. You know, Keno came in as an acrobat. He was already a fine gymnast, so he'd come in as an acrobat. And Keno's first show actually was a Charlie Chaplin show.
Okay.
Did he
do that from his acrobatics, or
no? He just came in and just did Charlie for the first day or two. He just did some Charlie Chaplin impressions, and then he morphed into what he was doing. He was a fine gymnast, so he came in with top skill. He had this amazing skill level of gymnastics.
I heard there was a level of craziness that he'd do in his show. He'd take it to the nth.
Oh, Keno was the greatest street performer of our generation, without doubt, without any doubt at all.
Elaborate on this point, then. Why so?
I mean, he's the multi-skilled. He did the unicycle, he did the ladder, he did the juggling, he did blindfold nunchucks on fire, 2 of them. He'd run the pillar, they'd run up down those cobbles and up the pillar and do a layout somersault of the pillar. His finale
like you see it's like you see in Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain. Yeah. And he actually said this to me, and you can mention it to him. He said, we became very good friends. He was my mentor, really, Keno, and many, many people. There's a lot of acts in Covent Garden that are probably 4th or 5th generation doing stuff which came from Keno, which they don't even know who Keno is. But Keno, his finale on the cobbles, this is on cobbles. Think about this. This is what I'm about to say. This is on the cobbles of Covent Garden. He would do a round off, then he'd go backflip, or back handspring, Americans would call it, backflip. Then he would do a whip, which is a backflip with no hands in a straight line. So he'd go flip, whip, then do a massive high layout somersault with split legs.
Wow.
But sometimes he'd do 7 or 8 flips before he did the finale.
Which is on solid ground, on concrete.
Well, no, that's not even solid ground. That's not even solid ground. That's cobbles. It's not even flat ground.
You got this business. Cobbles. Yeah.
And he did a backflip, jump a backflip so he could go from standing, jumping backwards into a handstand, backflip into a handstand.
Wow.
The guy was incredible. And then
I heard stories about his comedy as well. He apparently did. I heard stories of a cape and a large black dildo.
Oh, he was Keno. Keno was the greatest. Shows were always different. He'd always push the line. He had he used to wear, at one point, he had the trousers, and he'd drop his trousers, and he had his underwear with an elephant. There was an elephant on his underwear with a big trunk. Yeah. So one of the things he did was he used to tie a lady. He'd get a lady before he ran the pillar. He'd get a lady to stand by the pillar and pretend to tie her up. Just get some rope and just sort of tie her to the pillar. There's not hard, but just as in play world. And he'd say, "Madam, you have just been." His line was, "Madam, you have just been raped by 7,426 pygmies in the deepest, darkest Africa. Scream!" And she'd go, "Ah!" And he'd go, "No, madam, you don't understand. You've just been raped by 7,492 pygmies in deepest, darkest Africa. That's going to hurt. Scream." And then she screamed, big scream. Then he dropped his trousers, show his elephant
with his swimming trunks on, with his elephant thing, and he go, "Today's not your lucky day."
Oh, this is so
you got to
adult.
remember this is the 80s. But Keno would do the last show of the day. I mean, he wasn't doing this at 11 in the morning, because he would do like an hour. He would do long shows, so he'd always choose the last one of the day. And during the day, Keno was so he had so many different shows. During the I had another show where he did the puppet. That was a phenomenal show. It lasted about 15 minutes, and he would dress up with makeup and stuff, and he'd have what do you call it, like knicker elastic from his arms to his feet, and he did this. He was like this, and he did all this puppet stuff, and he was like a human puppet to music, and it was a show to music, which he'd do probably 10 times a day during the day, a 10-minute, 15-minute show. He did the puppet and the robot, and then in the evening he'd do his crazy show.
I heard it was like 2 hours long.
Oh, he'd just go for it, yeah. And yeah, Keno's was the greatest.
But yeah, this was in the days of bottlers as well, wasn't it? So you could do a 2-hour show, and he'd have people going around the crowd collecting. So you didn't need to have a 40-minute hat.
Yeah, that's when everyone, the circle act or the circus type acts would use bottlers. Still use now. You know, someone going round with a hat while you're continually doing your performance. Yeah, this is before we'd worked out the formula, you know, or our community had worked out formulas on how to get a crowd and whatever, the mathematical formulas on when to say money pitches, or, I mean, there's some of the great lines. Oh, the Amazing Mendezes, Brian mentioned them the other day. They were around. Chris and Alex, Chris and Dave, they were phenomenal act. They're juggling on a unispec.
Yeah.
And so, Duncan Trillo was a magician who did the linking rings and card manipulations on ball. We had a 10, 12-minute act. Yeah, he would do lots of shows in a row. Yeah, so it was a wonderful time. So imagine me at 15 years old going, right, I'm not going to walk in, play this. Just discovered this, what I just described. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah.
And so how did you see the progression? Because I assume you were there from the early-ish 80s. And you were there into the 90s?
Well, I was there, as I said, in the early 80s. And then what did I do first? Oh, then a guy came from New Zealand, a Pommy bloke. I call us Pommies, a Cockney guy who lives in New Zealand. His name was Dave. And he turned up and he had a strongman show. He dressed up in a leopard skin leotard and he blew up a hot water bottle. And then Keno actually gave him his first straitjacket. I remember that. It was this green straitjacket. And Dave started doing the straitjacket and chains and then blew up the hot water bottle, did some fire eating. He was a strongman. And he was with me. Well, he was living in his van, but he used to come and visit me in Hackney in my squat, which I shared with Ulick. The Green Accident Magical Theatre unit. And Dave said to me, why don't you come to New Zealand? And I was like, oh, yeah, well, what's that all about? I'd never been on an aeroplane. And so that year, playing, I was probably maybe 18, something like that. And I went on a one-way trip to the other side of the world, and I went to America, New Zealand, then spent a 6-month trip, then came back. So I was there in the early 80s. Then I started traveling probably late 80s. And then once I traveled quite a bit, Matt, I'd worked out in my head that England wasn't the place for me. There's other places in the world I could live. And I had a bag of tricks so I could make money anywhere. And I had a heart of confidence that I could make money anywhere. And I then basically, it was early 90s that I'd been around the world, and I'd gone back to NZ, and I decided to apply for New Zealand citizenship. then I stayed there for 4 years, and so basically I wasn't there very long, really, if you think of it about it, because I was there from say 82-ish to 90, but near the end of until 1992. But near the end of that, I was going away for the winters. I did do my hardcore winters. I did do my hardcore winters in London, though. Don't worry about that. I done the snow and the fucking shit.
I like the winter.
Oh, I hate it. I hate
it.
cold. Oh my god, it was so cold, man. I did the straight jacket and chains.
Me every time the sun comes out.
Yeah, well, I did the straight jacket and chains escape because it was nice to be warm, hugging yourself when the snow was there.
Yeah.
Oh, the winters, man. But we got through it. My rule was, I had a rule, and my rule was I would not sign on the dole. Because a friend of mine did. There was a magician buddy of mine. He would do shows as well. And one winter, we were all squatting in Hackney. We had all these squats. It was squatting era. So we didn't pay any rent. We had no rent, And another buddy of mine, he used to come down and do shows. And he went on the dole. And I went, I'm not going on the dole. Right, I'm only going to do shows. And I did shows on the tube. We can get to that as well. It was so cold, I was doing shows on the tube trains, on the trains. But I went to, he went on the dole. Then he stopped doing shows because he was getting his, I don't know what it was, say it was 50 quid a week, a fortnight, or 20 quid a week. I don't know what it was, right? But I knew myself, if I got 23 quid that week for free from the government, I'm not going to do shows. I can make that 23 quid last, eating beans and rice. And that would stop me doing shows, which would stop me getting better. That was my theory. And it was very interesting because this other fella who went on the dole ended up stopping performing and getting a real job. And so I never went on the dole, and we did the winters. Yeah, the winters.
Yeah. So when you see, I'm not going to talk too much. I've been told off people to talk about myself. I like the winter because you can push the crowds closer together to keep them warm. And every time the summer hits, I get vacant face from the audience. The sun kills them.
Well, you get that, but then you don't hear any applause here because they've all got gloves on.
Yeah. It's very true. So to get on this Covent Garden thing, just before we move on to stuff that happened after Covent, the tube stuff.
No, I like the Covent Garden thing.
Yeah, I'm interested in the progression, and I've talked to a lot of guys in the same era, and I just want to get a good account from lots of different perspectives about it. So how did you see the change, the progression through the time? So when you began to when you finished?
Well, there was less change then because there was pound notes.
I mean, change.
Did you see what I did?
You know. You know what I mean? The change of the culture and the environment.
What I think happened was because now just before I got there, Covent Garden was boarded up. Right, I wasn't there at that probably a year before, and Covent Garden used to be a fruit and veg market that moved to 9 Elms, and then it was just the area was boarded up, and performers apparently I said wasn't there at that time, but Tim Batt, Chris Lynham, JJ Waller, he was another one. Actually, JJ Waller was the one who got the kids to stand on the eggs and spin the plates. So if you want the correctness, it wasn't Tim Batt. Tim Batt was a juggler, and Tim Batt used to finish his show juggling a bag on fire, juggle those three things, and he would say.
Just one more time, Nick. I think we lost you for a second. At least I did on my feed. I don't know how everyone else is doing.
Yeah, so JJ Waller was the one who did the kids standing on the eggs. That was JJ Waller, who now lives in Brighton. Okay. Tim Batt used to juggle a French baguette, a frying pan, and an egg, and he'd light the baguette on fire, and he would juggle those. And his line was, "Eggs are nifty, eggs are neat, eggs are lots of fun to eat. I prefer mine," and he'd throw the egg up in the air, catch it in the pan, put the flavoured baguette up underneath. So he'd go, "And I prefer mine fried." So that was Tim Batt's. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, they used to perform not on the cobbles, but under the church.
In the portico?
In the portico. That was before the cobbles.
Was that a legal thing, or
no? Apparently it was legal because it was a walkway. It was public space.
It was. As far as I'm aware, that portico was owned by the church.
Oh,
So
owned by the no, it was that was what
yeah.
it was. Yeah, it was owned by the Actors Church. Yeah, because it's the Actors Church.
Yeah.
So you have to talk to those guys who would know more about that. I was just after that era, and so that's how it started there. And then there was this I don't know, out of work actors or kids like me. It was this thing that just started, and people are going. You know, there was a small group of people. The word was getting out. You can go to Covent Garden. You can do shows. You can make money. The only other busker I'd ever seen since then, I saw Johnny Eagle when I was about probably 8.
I don't know who Johnny Eagle is.
Johnny Eagle was a geezer. He was famous for performing. Now, you've got to ask Terry Sinclair about some of this. He's a musician.
I'll get him on there, definitely. Yeah.
But Johnny Eagle was this bloke who used to do shows at the Tower of London. It was him and his sidekick, and Johnny Eagle would spend metal bars over his arm by whacking them, and then he'd get it tied up in a bag with chains to go in the sack and chains. And
so it's kind of like a strongman variant.
Yeah, but he was a real strongman. Yeah, he was the real deal, and he used to crack a whip. He used to crack a chain. He'd have a chain with a banger on the end, a cracker, like a whip cracker. And he'd pick up the chain. He'd pick up the chain and crack the chain like a whip.
Ideas, people, ideas.
So this is Johnny Eagle. I was about 8 years old in the Tower of London with my dad. Anyway, that was a bit later. I was in Covent Garden. So what I think then, also Covent Garden had opened up, and there was this myriad of performers of all these different types coming from nowhere. These people who didn't want to fit into society. You could remember, this is before comedy clubs. This is before festivals. This is before any of this, whatever it was. Yeah. And that happened for a period of time. And then somewhere along that lineage, and I don't know when it would have been, because there were other things happening around the world at the same time, I think. I think it was a conscious or unconscious vibe of monkey see, I don't know, different monkeys on different islands doing the same thing. There was a scene in America.
Up all over the world.
Yeah, there was a scene in America going on. There was the Aussie scene has just sort of started. That didn't start till really Expo 88 with Keno. Keno influenced the Australian scene. Yes, totally. But the London scene, and then somewhere in that form, so that would have been Expo. I reckon in the 90s. I reckon I missed when it all started becoming generic and photocopies of photocopies. That would have been in the 90s, I reckon. Because we'd go to Edinburgh was around then. We'd go down to Edinburgh, and there was no Royal Mile gigs. We'd work on the Mound. No one worked on the Royal Mile; it didn't exist. We just work on the Mound, and there.
Right.
And
the street. I take it the street was there, but was it not? Was it a road? It was a road.
No one went there. Where it wasn't a busking place. It was the busking place.
Was it pedestrianised? Was it capable to work there, or?
Can't even remember. I don't even remember. The Mound was where we went, and then we go to Hollywood Park on Fringe Sunday. That was the big cash crop. Yeah.
I heard the stories about that, and apparently it just became too good, that park, and that's why it all ended.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I got a good story there. I was one day, I've been to Edinburgh before a few times, and I was living in a flat in Hackney. Paddy Bramwell's, we were living together. He had the show with the Cool Shades, who he explained that earlier, so I'm not going to go and explain that show. That was another unique, weird show, right? With their black box and their head thing, and but anyway, I planned this thing, and what happened was all the boys had phoned me from Edinburgh, and it was about midnight or something, right? And it was the day before Fringe Sunday. I was in London still, and I had this plan. I went, well, if they're all going to Edinburgh, I'm going to stay in London. I make some cash while there ain't any performers, because I can do more shows. And they all phone me, they're all a bit drunk and whatever, and it's like 10, 11 at night or something. And they're going, blah, 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 what you doing? I said, I'm not coming down, blah, blah, blah. And then the next morning, I booked an aeroplane. I booked a private jet. No, I got a plane to Edinburgh. I got a plane to Edinburgh, Fringe Sunday. I was at Hollywood Park on the primo spot, which is where this grass verge would go up like that. And you'd work here and all the people be. And I was there at about 9 o'clock in the morning with my bag, just waiting. And then they're all turning up. All the other guys are turning up.
So just very quickly before I get to this point, there was on Fringe Sunday, everybody, in case anyone doesn't know, I only know because other people told me, on Fringe Sunday, all the performers would go to the park, and a lot of the public would go to the park, and shows would fill the park.
Oh,
carry on.
I mean, tens of thousands of public. It was phenomenal. For some reason, I don't know why they did this, but that's just what happened. But anyway, it was unbelievable. So I was there first thing in the morning with my bag, just sitting there, a cup of tea, and they all turned up, and they went, remember, they just talked to me the night before on the telephone, and they're going, what are you doing? And I'm going, well, this is my spot. Sorry, I'll share it with one other. So I can't even remember who I shared it with. I shared it with another act. And then it was like, no, I was here first. This is my spot. So I planned it. Fucking hell, the amount of money I made that day. And of course it was all coins, right? Remember?
I don't. I'm 35, Nick. I don't remember.
I couldn't pick up my bag of money. My bag.
Wow.
I pick up the suitcase. Say this was the suitcase. I'm going to use a demonstration. Say that's the suitcase like that. I pick it up, but that would happen like that because this would be full of money. And I actually got a cab. I don't know how I did it because we didn't have telephones then. I can't know how I did it, but I got a cab to come to the park, like into the grass. Right, and then we both lifted up the bag and put it in the cab to get the cab then to take me to wherever I was staying. And it was unbelievable. Yeah, that was that's a funny story because I tricked them all. So I was down on the pitch first thing in the morning when I was in London the night before. I tricked them.
I bet there's a few surprised faces.
Oh yeah, there would have been. Yeah.
So did you work?
And that's when I was doing my finale. Yeah, we did it every year. Yeah, and then that was Then I stopped doing it. Then I went away in the 90s, and I came back, and then I stopped doing Edinburgh. I refused to do Edinburgh when it got all regulated. It used to be dog eat dog, go and do it, kill or be killed. You know, even though we had our own our own systems. But then when it got all regulated, I went, oh, this is not for me. And I've moved out. You know, I've moved away from England and started going to other places.
And was there a reason why you didn't like it being regulated? Just your own personal experience, or was there ideological stuff? Or
mate, I don't conform. I don't. You know, as I said, I'm a bit of a rebel. I'm like, and also a bit nostalgic. You know, it was like I remember Edinburgh when it was how it was, and there's a bit of that old sort of nostalgia going. I've got to go there. There's going to be whatever it is, 80 acts now, and you put a name out of a hat, and I might get a show. Right, or I can work an alcove for 20 minutes. You know, the old days it was like, I can just turn up. I can work anywhere I wanted and just do some shows or do 10 shows, or maybe me and you could sit on the step. I remember sitting in. Well, yeah, I in Melbourne there's a pitch and we queue up. We do a draw and stuff like that, and the weekdays is a queue. But I remember a time in Edinburgh I was sitting on the mound with Aileen. And the night before a show, and then we said, Lord, let's try that show out. And we're sitting on the steps of the mound, and it's going to be a juggling show, a club passing show, and went, well, let's just do it. So we just walked down the steps, in people, well, there's punters everywhere, Edinburgh, right? And we just did the show. Right, now you couldn't do that now.
No, you couldn't.
So
nowadays you can't do a 10-minute show nowadays. You can't do a 2-hour show. You do 40 minutes. And
it's not the time thing. It was just the creativeness of Aileen and I just went, well, let's try that thing out that we were discussing. So we had a little practice with the clubs. We got the moves. We went down down 3 sets of steps into the mass of people. Make sure we were away from other shows. And we tried this show out. Maybe it lasted 10 or 20 minutes. So I don't know how long it lasted. We put the hat out. We made a little bit of money and went, oh, that was quite good. And I think we might have done it again one time, maybe an hour later. But there were the times in Edinburgh where we could mess around. We could try different things out. And I haven't been back since the regulations. To answer your question, I don't know whether it's because of the regulations. It's partly that. It's part of my nostalgic thing. And it's partly of, I don't want to get on a pitch. I'm older now. I don't want to go somewhere, sleep on a couch, get on a pitch with 70 other people and maybe get a show. I was talking to Living Space about this last year or the year before. I might go to Edinburgh again if I was in Europe for the summer, but I'd go in there for a week or 10 days, see my mates, hang out, do some shows, and join the system, do some shows, but go in for a week, not for the whole.
Well, I've never seen you work in real life, so I'd certainly appreciate it, and I'm sure there'd be a load of other youngians who'd appreciate it.
Yeah, good on them. Pay my fare and I'll come.
Well, we'll try a crowdfunder there, eh?
Yeah, get me the fare to get there. There's no Edinburgh this year, though, is there?
Well, no Edinburgh this year, and hopefully next year. They reckon that it's going to be lifted in January, so let's see what happens.
Whatever they reckon. Who is they? They reckon they reckon this. They reckon that.
I spoke to a coroner who's the visor for the government on the extraneous death limits. She's pretty there for it, but
so the coroner's
in the end, didn't we?
At the end of the day, it's night.
Yes, well,
that's
here it's night, over there it's day.
That's to quote Melvin Plummer.
Okay, Melvin Plummer is in breakdancing, Melvin.
Now, I'm telling you, so you want to know where Melvin Plummer comes from?
What? Melvin's still on pitch. He's still around. We still see him.
Yeah, of course.
He's got a catchphrase everybody in London uses. Take a day off.
Yeah. Shrapnel, mate. Shrapnel. They give me shrapnel. They don't know what they're doing, do they? Bloody shrapnel.
Dream killers, mate. Dream killers. Life. Dream killers.
Oh, mate. Yeah, dummy, isn't it? All the flowers have died. That's where Richie rips his eyes from. You look at Richie, and Richie will admit this. You look at Melvin is such a brilliant clown with his face, right? Phenomenal clown. And now you look at Richie Rich, it's the same.
I can see that.
That's where Richie got his eyes from. And then he blacked out his face. Richie blacked out his face. Who's he emulating?
Well, he went blue. It's the Blue Man Group. Precursor.
Anyway, back in the day, in the 80s, then Ozzy's crew came down, and this is when they had the black break dancers with their big boogie boxes. They had these great big Sony boxes, which took 50 quid's worth of batteries. Yeah, and it was Ozzy's crew, and in Ozzy's crew was Melvin Plummer, Shandy South, Pop Rock, and who was the other one? There was four. There was Ozzy, Shandy, and Melvin was called Two Step. They all had their names. Melvin was Two Step. Shandy, I can't remember what your name was. Pop Rock, and then there was another guy. Rick was his name, a short guy, and he did all this locking. That locking.
Ozzy stuff as well. Ozzy
was Ozzy's crew. Ozzy was the dude, and he had these young kids. Right, they're all about 17, 16, whatever. And it was Melvin, Shandy, Pop Rock, who did this popping stuff, and he pushed his stomach out and in. And then there was the guy who did the locking, Shandy, who that guy was. And so that was how it started.
Yeah, he's still there till last year.
Yeah, I know, great guy. Yeah, and Shandy, he went one way.
Yeah, very much so.
He split his thing. Melvin did his thing. Ozzy did his thing. Bebop was the pop. Yeah, Bebop was the guy who did the tall, skinny guy stuck his stomach out. Apparently, he moved to Sweden, and Pop Rock was the shorter guy who did all the locking. But that was a team. That was the breakdancing team, and they used to come down and try and crash people's pitches. Just set up the big boogie box next to an act. No respect. But then they learned respect. And here's a good story with Keno.
Yeah,
it's a good story with Keno. Years ago, he was doing a show, and these boys, the breakdancers, had set up next to him on the West Piazza, turned their music right up, and started doing all the breakdances and stuff.
Right.
And remember, Keno was an acrobat, right? Keno was an acrobat. He could do moves, right? He was really good also at doing the windmills, which is the breakdance move on the floor, right? When you sort of spin on your twist, your legs spin on your back. And he walked out. So they were trying to strip his crowd. He walked out from his crowd into the middle of their crowd. And as he went into their crowd, he started doing robot and locking as he got to the center. And you remember he's this white guy doing all this locking robot. Got down through some amazing windmills. Then did a couple of and then took their crowd over to his crowd and stripped them dry.
And I bet they never did it again.
They learned respect and they learned to get in the queue. Yeah.
Sometimes it's weird on the street, and this is the thing I think I get from the older guys talking about the sort of the unorganizedness of it is you learn to rub shoulders. You make your room. You know, do you know what I mean? So with people, they'll come and they'll try something, and then you bit of shoulder pushing, and then suddenly it forms an equilibrium between you all because you figure out how you all work together. That doesn't happen when you have rules. You don't have the opportunity.
Yeah, there was all that going on. Remember, it was a art form that was becoming. There was no structure. It was a bit like this now, right? With this lockdown, people are doing shows on Zoom, right? And then people are doing group shows, and I've watched a couple. And yeah, some of them are a bit hard to watch, but it's a new format. People haven't worked out. Give it a year on, and creative people work out. It's great to watch, right? So, you know, and how Zoom works. Back then, it was this bunch of people who didn't want to be a part of society, who had a few tricks up their sleeve and saw they could put a hat out and make money and go wherever they wanted. So, yeah, there was all that going on amongst the acts, and the breakdancing thing came in, you know, the black breakdancing crews, they tried to just, you know, they were the, and then after that was the panpipers years later, wasn't it, you know?
I believe, who was it? I think it was Pop described them as the magic carpets. Because he said everywhere in the world he'd go, he'd see the Peruvian Buddy flute bands there wearing the Buddy things. So he said, I just started describing magic carpets.
I remember Jaspin Angelo. He was an amazing juggler. I never know what happened to him. Jaspin, incredible juggler, weird geezer. We're all weird though. But here in Edinburgh, there was a panpipers there. None of us had mics then back then. Remember, Matt? Right? There was no panpipers at the top of the mound, and they had speakers and a generator. They had all this shit, right? And they were blasting off. Jaspin went down there. Went over while they were playing, and he cut their cord.
Wow.
Literally cut. He unplugged it and plug off.
It's like, no.
Yeah, because it was disrespect, right?
Well, I always have a big problem with people trying to win by volume. You win because you're better than me. You don't win because you've got bigger gear than me.
But it's just like bullies, isn't it, at school, you know? You know, I have no time for bullies or people who have no respect. Be nice. Yeah, that's it. I'm in the middle now.
Well, yeah, you're in the middle. You're framed. So on the note of bullies, I've heard lots of stories about back in the day, Covent Garden being a difficult environment to be in because there was a bullying culture. This is what I've been told, at least. I don't know.
Who told you that?
No.
Who told you that?
A lot of the guys the older guys who've been there from there, they say the culture back in the day was harsh. People would, I mean, I've heard stories about Aussie chasing people down and people having to hide drive there because of stuff. And
there were some people. And I remember Aussie. I mean, Aussie is a massive geezer. I remember him picking me up and throwing me against the wall once. But I don't think that was because it was the culture. I just think some people have. Remember, it's a street performing. We attract all different types of people there. There's people who are on the streets now who went there because they came out of jail and they had nowhere to go, right? You know, and there's other people who had anger issues. There's other people who whatever. But as a whole, I disagree with that. Remember, you can ask Alex this as well. Remember, I was 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want anyone who's good to bully, I mean, I was weaker than them physically, right? I'd stand up for myself, but if they wanted to go, I would lose, right? Yeah. As in bullying, because I was 16, but they took me under their wing. Covent Garden has out of all the pitches I've ever been to in the world, and I've been to quite a few and sat on for years, right? Covent Garden community of street performers is the tightest, most what would be the word? The tightest family, right? Of itinerant, or they're not the itinerant in Covent Garden, are they? But the tightest family of vaudeville vagabonds, the tightest family of vaudeville vagabonds on any pitch in the world.
I think that still lasts to this day.
Oh yeah, and it does. And I hear stories. I've sent some people down to Covent Garden. Tony Roberts, I met. He was a car salesman when I met him, and I sent him.
He worked for Orax.
What?
The name, the company, Aurillac. Is it Orax?
What?
It's not important. I'm trying to name the company he worked for. It's not important.
He worked for many places, right? But he was. I met him in a card game. And he was a car salesman, and anyway, I took him under my wing, and he wanted to change his life. But he went there, and I said, all you got to do is either meet Mel, mention my name, or Pepe, and he did, and they took him under their wing, and he became an establishment there for 10 years. The other people, the great thing about Covent Garden is that some of the people, like in any community, are more frugal than others, and design shows to make the cash. So there's some people if you describe it as a class structure, but using the word class as in fiscally, right? Some people are up there financially. Some people are down there financially, and have been in the same places for 25 years, right? Because of whatever reason, and that doesn't matter, right? They've made the choices subconsciously or consciously, but everybody is here. Like, for example, if performer A, who for 20 years has always struggled and always, never had the cash, is fucked up, and performer B now owns a house and a rental property, if performer A gets sick and needs help, performer B will help him without a question.
Yes.
No one's going, no, I'm not. No one's going to go, and it's always been, no one's going to go, look, here's 50 quid, pay me back tomorrow, and if you're not coming tomorrow, I'll throw you against the wall. They go, here's 50 quid, give it back when you can. And it's always been like that in Covent Garden. So the bullying aspect, I don't know who's told you that, but bring them to me and I'll beat the shit out of them.
Well, I just like to confirm the helpful thing. I was ill a few years ago, and without doubt, without question, every month the rep came and they said, "Here, this is what we've got for you. We're looking after you."
Yeah,
I felt the love,
We've done that for years with people, and done benefit concerts for people in need, and helping each other out.
And is that not indicative of every pitch in the world?
Not the ones I've been. They recently did one here in Melbourne for the fire, for the fire people, right? Yeah. Firemen.
The firemen. Yeah.
The the firefighters. The guys here did a group
for Idris.
No, I don't know what. Maybe they did. I've been on cruise ships for 5 years, so I haven't been much in the street scene. But I don't know about Idris. They might have done one for Idris, but they did a little one here. But Covent Garden, remember, we're talking. That's been going for 30 years.
More than 30 years, mate. I mean, 40 years for you.
Yeah, 40 years from when. Yeah, how old are you? You don't know yet. But
I have an idea now.
The people were doing benefit concerts then, and people were on other pitches.
Nick, I'm really sorry, mate. Can I get you just to say it again, because you dropped out again? I'm really sorry, mate.
Okay, yeah, 40. Well, 40 is Covent Garden's been going for that long. Other pitches do benefit concerts, and But the community, when you've got a community who's been going for 40 years, that's pretty tight. And yeah, they just said they did one in Melbourne. Other pitches probably have done group benefit concerts, and there are probably pitches around the world which have a family atmosphere, like Covent Garden, that I haven't been to, like New York. I don't know the New York scene, right? So, but London was, and the acts were bizarre back then, Matt. They were fantastic, yeah.
They sound great. I mean, I often feel like I would, as a person wanting to watch other people's shows, I felt like I was born in the wrong era, because you hear these really interesting things happening back then, you know. And I do wonder why now are we here? I think we've said it in a lot of interviews. I think it comes to the point. It's the fact that the structure evolved, and there's no going back. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle.
No, it was like, you know, the structure now is we got to get the crowd. There's many ways to get the crowd. You know, of course, there are people. Now people use music, and you could use music. If you think about it, music will make people stop. Fire will make people stop. You light a fire stick, you hold it up. But so these sort of things, people were understanding then, and then it was morphing. People go, oh, look at that. Old, you know, Johnny Boy's lighting a flame. Every time he lights a flame, people stop. I'm going to light a flame, right? Oh, when someone plays, just that, someone does that, oh, I'm going to try that. And remember, we were living 12, 15 hours a day under that portico every day, 7 days a week. So we're watching shows, we're talking to each other, we're analysing stuff, we're sharing stuff. And then now it's, you know, they're 4 million, then you get a kid, you do something to get credibility. You get a kid out, you give the kid the $5, you set up your trick, and whatever your trick may be, which is get on a unicycle, swallow the sword, or whatever, gives some, so people ain't going to leave because they're waiting for you to do your final trick. And then you're going to get up on the, for example, this unicycle, you're going to have before you juggle the sticks, you do your money speech, and then you juggle your sticks and you get your money. Another act, I did the Straight Jacket and Chains for a long time, and that was a great act because that's really a cheat act, as I would call it, because once you get tied up, once you start getting tied up, the crowd just gets bigger. You could be the worst, have the worst charisma in the world. You could be full of zits, with fucking greasy hair, fucking on heroin. You get tied up.
You're trying to say something here, mate.
Oh, do you do the Straight Jacket and Chains, do you?
No, I don't know. I just wanted to
you get tied up in the straight jacket. You get tied up in the Straight Jacket and Chains. The crowd's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? It's a guarantee. Yeah. And then,
I think the thing with that is it's the narrative, isn't it?
Well,
it's
no,
they know once you get in there where it's going.
I think what it is, because the people, they're watching because they want to see you not get out.
Okay.
See the bloke stuck, heard of it, and they go, "Ah, this guy, look at that guy's tying him up. He might not get out." And then when you get out, it's weird because then it's an anticlimax, isn't it? But because they want to see you not get out. But that's what I think. But the Straight Jacket and Chains is a cheat. Well, it's not a cheat. I did it for years, but it's an act that's designed because it's guaranteed once you start getting tied up. At 100%, crowds will stay and get bigger 100% of the time. That's it, fact, right? And Magic's, and then going back to the unicycle, they're going to stay because they want to see you get on that bike, right? Or the ladder, or whatever. And Lee Ross was saying this, right? You go height, your crowd gets bigger, you make more money, right? Fact. The Magic is one of the hardest things to do on the street because as a magician, you can't tell them what's coming up. You ever thought about that? I do the cups and balls. I did cups and balls for years, right? I still do it.
You have a beautiful cups and balls show, mate. But carry on anyway. Don't let me interrupt you.
I've done it many times. But I can't. You can't. Cups. You can't say, ladies. Once you get a crowd, you can't go. Right, I see these metal cups. I'm going to make all these oranges, or whatever. I use tennis balls, but you see these cups. I'm going to make these oranges come out of these cups right at the end. But first, I'm going to get this rope and cut it up and make it count. But I'm going to do these cups, and but first, I'm going to do this thing with these rings and join them and make them come undone. And then when you go, look, here's the cups, here's the oranges. They go, well, it's not a surprise, is it? It's not magic because you told us what was going to happen. So as a magician, it's a concealed skill. You can't tell anyone what's coming up. Brilliant and brilliant comedy to keep crowd. You got it. That's the art of crowd control. Big unicycle, bit of rope tied between two pillars. You're not tied up in chains. You can't tell them what's coming up. So have you ever think about that? You've gone now. You've blacked out, mate. You've just blacked out. I don't know whether anyone else there, can you hear me? Have we got a chat box down there? We can type in here if you can still see me. Hello, you've gone, mate. Matt, Matt, you blacked out. I don't know. Can anyone else hear me?
Actually, me that went. Hello.
Maybe he's. All right, there you go. You're back.
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah.
All right, we're back now.
I was talking for a while to the screen, thinking you'd gone, and then it took me about a couple of minutes to realise it was me that gone. Please carry on.
Yeah. Gone dark. Mike Dardar said gone dark. Yeah, mate. We're in lockdown. Mike Dardar is a nice bloke, you know, Mike.
I think I know. Mike, we've met in festivals. How you doing, brother? We've got a few different questions and bits. Carry on.
Yeah. Go on. I'll answer questions. Go on. Ask me some questions.
MJ is asking, ask him, as I found when Gareth did the Straight Jacket and Chains last summer at Angel Canal Festival. He is right. Gareth got a great crowd, but isn't it also every new generation loves watching old tricks?
Every new generation loves watching old tricks, but they don't know they're old tricks. Generation. The Gareth, the mighty Gareth, mighty not. He always did. Right, mighty not. He turned up before he did very good genius and a musical electronic guy, a very good musician. And I think if I'm right, he'd been at music college and he turned up at Covent Garden. I remember him meeting me and he bottled for me when I did my head chopper show.
I heard he used to be a bottler when he began.
And then he got into doing some shows and learning magic and whatnot, and he's found his own way. Yeah. So that's Gareth.
Well, he's now a big power show.
Yeah. Well, he learned. He decided. What did he do? Analyze what he did. He got a chainsaw. Right. He got fire.
And fire.
Spiky punk hair. And he learned to swallow a sword. I mean, that's not an easy stunt, but he did all the big stuff. He did the big tricks, didn't he? Yeah. But Gareth, so he did the Straight Jacket and Chains. MJ said, "Who's MJ Morgan? Do I know MJ Morgan? Who are you, MJ?"
MJ is a lady on the scene. She runs a theatre boat within London. The Witchetty Theatre Boat.
All right.
You might have met her if you ever go to Glastonbury. She's always knocking about there. She's a lady on the scene.
Oh yeah. I did Glastonbury a few times. Yeah.
So,
any other questions there?
So before we go to the other questions, we can get more questions in. But I've got some questions. So you've reached the point of the 90s. You've moved away from Covent Garden. Where have you gone?
I went my first trip on that aeroplane. I went to America. I went to New Orleans. I did. Had a tough time in New Orleans there, and that's where I met Tim Eric. Why did I have a rough time? Because I was shit. Yeah. So this is a good. Actually, I went to. So I got this ticket. One-way ticket the other side of the world. I had 100 quid in my pocket, carry-on luggage, and I'm on an aeroplane. I'll tell you how long ago this was. I remember sitting on this aeroplane, and I said to the stewardess, "Could I go and see the cockpit? I'd love to go in the cockpit of the plane." And she went, "Yeah, sure." She went and talked to the captain. He came back, or she came back, and I went and I was sat in the front cockpit of the aeroplane with the captain while it was flying.
Different
That's
era,
long
eh?
ago it was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then anyway, so I'll go to New Orleans, and there was a balloon clown. He turned up in London the year before called Jose Torres, and he did this like pantomime type show, but with balloons. People up in the balloons, and they would have a sword fight or whatever. Fantastic act with a squeaker. He called himself. And New Orleans, come and stay with me. So I go to New Orleans, and I'm with him. And Paul Morocco has another great story. You got to remind me about Paul Morocco and his dog on the tram. Brilliant story.
I talked to Paul Morocco for the first time today. He's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks.
Did he tell you about his dog Israel?
Anyway, very brief conversation, but yeah, carry on.
So we were. So then we're in his flat, and he said, "You go to Jackson Square. That's where you make some money." So there I left his apartment, went to Jackson Square, went down Bourbon Street. I told this story the other day actually somewhere, but I was going down Bourbon Street, and this kid come up to me and he goes, "I'll tell you where you got them shoes." And I went, "No, I didn't know what was going on, right?" And I remember I'm pretty streetwise savvy, so I knew something was up, but I didn't know what was up. So I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "If I tell you where you got them shoes, you give me $5 for a shoe shine. If I get it wrong, I'll give you a free shoe shine." I went, "Oh, yeah, all right." But I couldn't work out what was going on. And then the next thing I knew, he said, "You got your shoes on your feet, Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, United States of America. That's where you got them shoes, mister." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, I got done." And then my foot was on a step. He pulled out a rag, spat on a rag, and polished my shoe and said, "This is traditional New Orleans spit shine." I didn't have $5 on me. I had less than a $5. So then I gave him everything I had, say that was $2.25. I gave him everything I had and said, "Don't spit on a bloke's shoes. I'm not going to give you the $5." But I didn't have the $5, remember. So now I had no money. And I went to Jackson Square, and that's where I met. And then I tried to do a show. I got a bit of a crowd, and a big brass band walked past me, as they have in New Orleans. Massive, like 20-piece brass band, jazz band walks through, strips my crowd. So then I'm really depressed. I'm sitting on the step with no money, nothing. And I got chatting to a bloke called Tim Eric. And Tim Eric is the greatest escape artist I've ever seen in the world of any type. And he's still alive. You should talk to him. He was incredible.
Why is it?
Used to be
definitely so. But
I'll tell you why. He was also a pantomime, but in his escape, he put me in his straight. I was this cocky English kid, right? And he went, "Oh, you got a straitjacket, you got buckles." I went,
and you're about 18, 19 at this point?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And I went, yeah. He goes, "Your straitjacket's got buckles." And I'm like, "Well, haven't all straitjackets got buckles?" And he goes, "You ever seen one of these?" And his straitjacket had, if you look at it from the back, normally we got buckles, right, like that.
Yeah.
It had eyelets, right? Just eyelets down there. And he had, so you put the jacket on, you put your arms in like that, right? And the jacket's flipped. And around the back, you got the eyelets, and he had a lace, and that would be woven in and out of the eyelets as tight as you can and knotted. The arms there was a loop here. The arms went through that loop, right? I think he had a loop here and a loop here. I think there's 3 loops. So there was none of that.
Wow.
So there's none of that. And then one of the arms was an eyelet. One of the arms was an eyelet. The other arm was a lace. So they go through there, right? Then there was no buckles on the arms. So then you'd thread the lace through the eyelet, pull it as tight as you want. You can knot it. You could tie it to the other lace on the back, underneath the same eyelet and laces. So that's how you lock. You couldn't fucking move. He tied me up in this.
So just so people who don't know, the traditional method of straitjacket is not accessible in this straitjacket that he's just described. You can't get out the same way you usually get out.
You couldn't move. And then he had chains on top, and he'd get them a time round and round and lock him, pull his arms back. And we became very good friends, Tim and I. We lived in Key West together for a long time. He would stand there, and the guy was unbelievable. If anyone's seen Tim Eric's escapes, you know what I mean. And no one ever in the world of any escape. He was the real deal. And he'd tie up, and in front of him, he had a panda bear, right, a toy panda, quite big, and a little basket with some keys in and some bolt cutters.
because it would be around his neck, chains around his neck as tight as you want, and he would stand there and he would do this. This was his opener, and he called his bear Muck Tuck, right? Then he'd go, he's so tied up. He'd go, "Hi, my name's Tim Eric." Where's the camera here? There. "Hi, my name's Tim Eric. I do pantomime and escapes. This is not pantomime. Down there is Muck Tuck. He's my financial advisor. Today is Muck Tuck's birthday. Again." And he had a hat in front of Muck Tuck for the money as well, a basket. And then he'd go, "You can start your watches when I start to move." And then he'd start doing this. People would camp out to watch him. He'd take 40 minutes, an hour and a half. And he would, unbelievable. So Tim was there then. Let's go.
So just before we go on off this, so he spent an hour and a half doing the show, or an hour and a half getting out of the straitjacket like Harry Houdini?
It was a freak. He was better than Houdini. It was unbelievable. He might take 30 minutes to get his hand free like that, and people would cheer. He'd go blue. He'd go blue. Sometimes he had to be cut out because that's why he had the chain cutters.
For emergency.
It's the real deal. Oh yeah, he was the real deal. He actually got taken to hospital from loss of oxygen.
Wow.
Yeah, so I lived with him in Key West. We became very good friends, Tim and I. Very, very good. I still talk to him on Facebook, you know. It was fantastic. But so he was there in New Orleans. I just made nothing. And he put me in this jacket and I couldn't move. And I was like, "Oh my God, what's this?
What the fuck is this?" Yeah.
I didn't have any money, and I had some balloons. So I went on the corner of Jackson Square and I think Royal Street it's called. And I started twisting balloons, and I made a little bit of money to twisting some balloons into some animals. Went back to Jose's apartment and said, told him about the shoe story. And he laughed, and Paul Morocco, they laughed. I've made my money back on the shoe story. Don't worry, you know. I can tell you where you got that shirt. I bet you 50 quid, right? You know, you got the shirt on your back in a boat in London, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So I don't
believe
know
it or not, this shirt I got off Keno. Believe it or not.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Keno.
The guy dresses me now. Yeah.
I know, he's in the rag trade, yeah.
Well,
So
I
don't know where that story, what question started that story.
So where you go? So we did Covent Garden. We said where you go next. Then we got to.
I went New Orleans, and then I went to San Francisco, and I had a contact there from a bloke, from Dave, Kiwi Dave, and then about this bloke called Dana Smith, and I'd phoned him up. He picked me up from the airport. This bloke Dana Smith. He looked like Chips. Remember that TV show Chips? With the round, fucking the cops on the motorbikes with the glasses, like Dana's like magazine beautiful. You know, the jaw, the glasses,
he's a model.
The American.
He's a model.
And he picked me up from the airport, him in his pickup truck, and his dog Sunshine, and he was like, you know, he's such a nice geezer. And I stayed with him for a bit in San Francisco. Then I moved from him to a guy called Wheeler's place, and I moved out of there, ended up squatting on a boat, which I didn't know was a squat in San Francisco, and I was working on Fisherman's Wharf, and I did a winter in San Francisco. Oh, I've got a good story there. That's when I first saw the Grateful Dead. You want to hear that story?
Yeah, please.
So, do you know the Grateful Dead?
I know of them, yeah.
Right, the Grateful Dead were a band who started with Jay Garcia was the lead during the LSD era of America, when everyone was in the 60s, you know, whatever, they're dropping out, tripping in and dropping out.
The hippie trail.
I'd never heard it. Yeah, and they were like the sort of the lead. Thousands of people will follow the Grateful Dead. And this band, right, look them up, fantastic band.
They do 4-hour concerts. It was amazing, on LSD and everything. But I didn't know this at the time. So I'm working outside the Anchorage Shopping Centre on Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. Doing my shows, trying to make my money, whatever, hanging out. To my left was a guy with trained parrots, and to my right was down the way was some balloon twister from Birmingham who was squatting on a boat I ended up living on, blah, blah. And then someone else was up the other way. Vaughan Avery was across the road doing mine. And this guy, Johnny, comes up to me and he goes, "Are we going to see the Dead? Do you want to go and see the Dead?" Now, remember, I'm 18 years old. I'm from London. And a bloke said, "Do you want to go and see the Dead?" I'm like, "What the fuck? What's that?" He goes, "You don't know the Dead, man. You don't know the Dead?" And I'm like, "Nah." So I got in a wagon in a V-dub with these musicians. We drove over the wagon.
Wow.
Yeah, they lived in it, And then we drove over the bridge to Oakland Coliseum, and there was thousands and thousands of, they called them deadheads, these people who travelled following the Dead, all in tie-dye shirts, with wagons selling coffee and chai and sandwiches, and there was a haze.
I'm sure they were selling more than sandwiches.
Yeah, haze of marijuana smoke over the top, trippers and the full picture. Imagine it and double your imagination, right? And I'd said to Johnny, I said before, "Can I work it? Can I do shows there?" Because I was always up, keen to work. And he went, "Yeah." So anyway, we get there, and park in a van somewhere, and I'm in now. I'd never seen anything like this in my life. It was unbelievable. And someone said to me, "You got to try and hustle a ticket, Nick." So I went, "All right, that's the idea, to get a ticket to go and see this band." And I'm there tied up in my straitjacket. I wasn't doing the chains then. That's when I'd started doing this thing. If you get up quicker than it takes me to get out of the straitjacket, and they time me 58 seconds, I get out 57. I'd started working that out in New Orleans. So anyway, I'm tied up in the straight. I checked names already and stuff, and I've got a really big crowd, and they're all these deadheads, fully tripped out fucking people, right? And so I'm tied up in the jet, and this dude comes out of the crowd walking towards me really slowly, and he had a little bit of square cardboard in his hand. You still there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm still there. I'm listening to you, bro. I'm just playing my phone, trying to get better signal. You crack on, mate.
And then he had this little tiny bit of square cardboard, and he's walking towards me, and I've got hundreds of people with these deadheads around me. And I knew what that square cardboard was, because I had that type of cardboard before in my life. It was LSD, right? And I was like, he's got some acid in his hand. I'm in a straitjacket in front of all these people who are fully fucking fabulous furry freak brothers times 1,000, around me. And then the people started going, chanting at me, "Take the dose, man, take the dose." Wow. Now I didn't know what dose meant, which is slang in California for LSD, but I knew what it meant because I'm not stupid, right?
Yeah.
So I went, "You folks, you want me to eat that acid, that dose?" And they're all going, "Yeah, man, take the dose." So I said, "All right, someone give me a ticket to go and see this band." And remember, I'm right fucking like that, you know what I mean? Right, and with all these deadheads in California, I said, "Someone give me a ticket." So someone then ran out and stuck a concert ticket in my back pocket. I ate that acid. I got out of the straitjacket, put my hat out, and in my hat I made beers, sandwiches, joints, cookies, whatever. I made a bit of money as well. So I got that, and then I went, right. My mate who was watching the show, the musician, he said, "Wow, look, it was amazing. You got a ticket." So I went in and saw the Grateful Dead, and they're phenomenal. I was tripping out of my head.
Yeah.
But they're phenomenal. And then I saw the Grateful Dead probably 10 times after that. I saw they did 3 nights in London. I saw all 3 nights in London. And I took Pepe one night. I took Charlie.
Would it be safe to say you were a deadhead?
I thought they were, I was a bit of a deadhead, yeah. And I do shows and get the ticket, right? And then
Nick,
they play 3 nights.
You crack on.
Yeah, okay. Hello, folks. You can write me.
I can hear you, Eddie.
On my right-hand side, folks. Who's listening here? There's people. You can ask me a question, if you like. On my right-hand side, Brian Reed wrote "Me too." Hello, Brian. How are you, mate? So if anyone wants to type a question in, someone, James A. Morgan, you may know me as stage manager in Theatre Circus Fields. Yes, I do know. I do know who you are. How are you? How are you? John Dart. So if you want to write something down, I will answer the question while Matt goes to the toilet. I don't know where his toilet is, maybe over the other side of the boat. He lives on a boat and I live in a house. So he's back now. No one wanted to ask me a question, Mike. No one typed anything down.
Don't feel hurt. It's a 30-second delay.
Oh, Mike wrote, you know what we want to see. Oh, yeah.
Do we?
I said, yeah. Wait there. I'll go and get it. Wait there. You talk now.
So I guess it's my turn to fill in. So, yeah, let's see the questions. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Cabana, yeah. Cabana, I'm going to have you on soon, mate. I'm going to message you. I left one in there. I will contact you very, very, very soon. Everyone, nice to have Nick on. Thank you. Hey, scruffy fuck. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. I'm a street performer after all. Come on. I've got to keep up the aesthetic. I play a low-status character. I kind of am a low-status character, let's be honest. So what else we got here? Scott, you're going to be on the show quite soon. I can see Nickolas. Yeah, that's how this works, mate. That's how this works. Keep going. Yes. So I'm really happy to have Nick on. I'll be honest, I watched Nick many, many, many years ago, and I watched his cups and balls routine. And there's a few moments at the end, disappearing a ball, giving these beautiful, uplifting speeches that it made me think that's what street performance is about. It's about making these nice, beautiful moments. And then when you reach the peak of these emotional moments of the tricks, you deliver these uplifting comments on life. I think it's beautiful. It's really, really nice, you know? I'm kind of a bit lost now because I talk a lot about myself and I don't mind talking about myself, but I've kind of got out of the habit of talking about myself and talking about things during the interview. I go into quite a neutral phase because I don't really want to, if I can help it, overpower what's going on. I have a horrible habit of telling my own stories, doing story swapping. Nick can't find his props. It certainly appears so. I'm going to be filling in for a little bit longer, Mike. I can hear something in the distance.
I found it. I wanted to go to the toilet.
Oh, you got time? Get to the toilet. I'll fill for you. Go pee.
No, I just did that, and then I had the longest pee in the world. But the Mike Dada said this. Look, here we go. So you know what you want to see. There you are, Mikey.
Hey. Funny, believe it or not, I was literally just talking about the moment where you reveal and disappear the ball. Do you remember many, many years ago I watched the show? What was the last thing you said as you disappeared the big tennis ball at the end of your show? What was the quote?
What was, say that again?
What was the lines you delivered as you disappeared the tennis ball at the end of the show? Because it's so many years ago. I watched it once on a YouTube video and it touched me. It did touch me, you know. The sincerity of the moment.
I have a running gag. I know what you want to see, and I bounce the ball, and then people would clap, and that came about because when you do magic, remember we discussed you can't tell anyone what's coming up, right? Of course, That's a difference. But when you do magic, there's a pause from when the effect has just happened to when the clapping happens. There's an intake of breath. Right, as opposed to if you just got up there and juggled 5 claps, say, for example, people will clap immediately. But if you go up there and you vanish a bottle of wine, people go before they clap. There's an intake of breath if you do magic well. And, yeah, you know what I mean, Matt?
Exactly, yeah. Yes, I do, yeah. It's always a different thing to play.
Yeah, so I came up with this thing that was because of this app, and I was in Norway when I come up with it. But you'd say you cut a piece of rope in half and you make it come back together. And then the Norwegians don't react very much like, say, black Americans. So I've got another great story in the Taste of Chicago. Ask me that later, right? The Taste of Chicago. But about black American audiences. So what I did, I bounced a tennis ball. So I say I'd cut a rope and make it come back together, and they wouldn't count. I go, look at that. Look, watch this, folks. And I just bounce a tennis ball, and I say, look, I can get the same reaction bouncing a tennis ball as I can from doing the amazing magic. And I'd run that joke. So I would play no applause. I'm playing everything down. I didn't want the applause. I just wanted the applause for bouncing the ball, which I started to get. And then as I'm doing the cut and balls routine, before I produced all the tennis balls, I'd say, I know what you want to see. I show the ball again, and then I'd throw it, I'd go to bounce it, and it just vanishes in thin air. And people go, what the fuck was that all about? You know, it was quite an amazing vanish. And so it's a running joke. So that's the answer to your question. That was, I know what you want to see is the line. Then I'm doing the cups. Then near the end of the cups, when I start the review, I say, I know what you want to see. They're already programmed to say tennis ball. Then I produce a small tennis ball from the hat, 5 or 6 from the cups, and then this giant one from the hat at the end. Yeah. So that was the line.
Yeah. So are you a believer?
Yeah.
I went on performance.net when I was beginning performing, and I read a concept called the applause bank. Are you a believer of this idea? Do you know the thing I'm talking about, the thing I'm referencing?
No, I have no idea what an applause bank is.
So the idea of applause bank is that if you do something that's impressive, you can push people to applaud, but it's actually better to suppress that and to put it away and to save it like in a bank account. And you're putting all the applause into this applause bank. And then what you're doing is at the right time, you then release the applause bank and you let the audience give the adulation that they've been restrained from giving before. And so with the ball, it appears like you're constantly...
I never heard that,
yeah, so it appears like you're suppressing the applause, but you're at the same time ingraining the applause to this object. And then you save it all the way through the show, and then you release it once, you know, you've got your interest, so to speak, on it.
Yeah, because I'm doing then I've got the producing all the balls, yeah. Now, do you know about our dear friend who died last year, Rob Torres, about his applause box?
No. I mean, I know the name of the guy, but my memory's awful. Maybe I know the guy, you know. So, but please carry on.
Talking about applause bank, and some people knew this guy. He was a very dear friend, and he died last year. But he had a thing. He was a clown, a New York clown, and he didn't talk. Short Puerto Rican type New Yorker, or dark skin, maybe Puerto Rican. But he had a box. He'd get the crowd really clapping, and then he'd have this little tiny wooden box. And he'd open it. Now, he didn't talk in his show. No music, no talking, just the clown. And he'd open the box, tiny little box, open it up, and he'd go like this, and he'd get all the applause and put it into like this and go really small and close the box. So now there's silence. And then he'd just open the box a little bit, and the crowd would go off, right? So we go. And then every now and then he'd come back to the box, and he'd open the box and let the applause out, and the crowd would playing along, right, and would go nuts.
Yes.
And it became his bit. And I remember I remember him doing a show in Canada, in Edmonton. We're all in this park, and there was crowd. You know, everyone's got circles. And I was watching Rob's show, and just over the way, someone had got their crowd to cheer and go crazy. And Rob was doing a thing with the shaker cups, you know, throwing the cups up in the air and catching them. And he heard the crowd go crazy, and he over the way, and he went, put the cups down, got his little box that he'd set up already, and opened it, and his crowd went crazy, and put the box down and goes back to his cups.
So nice to have to work that silent.
And then, right, we know as street performers, when you get to the thing, you have crowd wars, right? So then the other juggler, whoever it was, the other act, heard his cheer and got his crowd to make a bigger cheer, right? So Rob's doing his thing, and there's another bigger cheer. So Rob's like pissed off, going, gosh, puts the stuff down, goes back to his little box, waits, takes a bit longer, opens it and gets a bigger cheer, puts the box down, goes back to doing his juggling. Then it's number 3. This is the kicker. Then down the way, another big cheer. So Rob's now really pissed off, right, in his character. So he gets his Samsonite. He takes a little wooden box, puts it to the side, gets a Samsonite suitcase, opens it up, tips out all his stuff that's in the suitcase, tips it all out, then takes the little box, opens the case and empties all the applause from the little box into the big suitcase, keeps the big suitcase closed, puts it down, takes a step back, very slowly walks up to the suitcase, picks it up, and then opens the big suitcase, which is now full of applause, And the punters, of course, just went crazy. That was his running gag. Yeah, that was fantastic. But I never heard what you just said before the applause.
Well,
bang.
this is the maybe that's just the concept of this thing. You know, he did that exact thing in a playful thing. But the thing I thought about when you said that is, and it's something maybe for the younger street performers watching, is this idea of creating games with your audience, playing with your audience. It's not just like you presenting and getting the cheers. And you must have, in your experience, seen people do this so well.
Oh, my favourite acts are the clowns. Yeah, Pepe, Rob Torres. My favourite, I could watch Pepe 1,000 times. It was the greatest. You know, Rob Torres, I watch him 1,000 times.
Why could you watch Pepe 1,000 times?
The clowns. You never knew what was going to happen.
So it's the unexpected nature of the improv.
I saw Pepe do a show. I saw Pepe do this. I saw Pepe do this once. I mean, there's many stories. Covent Garden, massive crowd, like the full rectangle, the full, you know, the mime can get a bigger crowd than anybody.
So you're looking at like 500 people?
I don't know how many, but the full piazza, you know, like massive, the big rectangle, all the way to the edges, right? The full. So he was doing this show. So, and I was watching it from the Punch and Judy pub, and he would play the roads. On him, behind him is the Pillars, and then to his left is a road called, is it Henrietta Street?
You got King Street and Henrietta. Yes. I think so.
Yeah. So,
I think so.
Open pub there. His back was the Pillars, and he would play the roads. He'd go into the toilets and come back. So he was playing these big spaces, and a car. So Pepe pulled out his little orange gun.
Sorry, I lost you again, mate. You go. I lost you at car. So the car. He played with the car.
So there was so on his left, which was my right as I was watching. There's a road past which now, when I was last year, was a Dr. Martin shop, but that's where the road is. And there was a black
Street.
BMW.
King Street.
All right. Yeah, that's it. And then there's a black BMW, right, pulled up and put his 4 flashing lights on. Pepe went over to the black BMW, right, got his little orange gun out and held it up, right, and got the guy out of the BMW, right, the guy in the suit gets out of the BMW. Pepe puts him on the fence with his hands down and frisks him, does the frisking thing. Then Pepe jumped in the BMW and drove off. So he drove down King Street. Now remember, you've got a big crowd. There's a guy there in a suit, and the clown's just taken his BMW. Pepe drove down King Street, turned left at the bottom, down whatever street that is, then turned left again. So he came back up the other side, to our left now, and drove onto the piazza into the middle of the show. Now you've got to think that probably took him 2 minutes, maybe 4 minutes to get around. The crowd hadn't gone anywhere.
Of course not.
The guy's got no car, but the guy's got no car.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's literally just done that, right? So now he's got the car in the middle of the crowd. The guy came back, right? Pepe gave the guy a round of applause. Everyone's happy, right? Everyone's laughing. Shook the guy's hand, right? Then and Pepe cleaned the guy's headlights and stuff and was very nice to him. Gets the guy in the car, and the guy's going to drive now out the piazza down King Street. And then Pepe reached in the car to top it all off, pulled the keys out and started dancing around with the keys, going na 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 na, you know, to the guy to get another laugh. And then the guy got in the car and drove off. The clowns, they're so funny. Now, you tell me another act that can do stuff like that. Shiva Green, she's another brilliant clown.
I'll describe this just for regards to it's the moments. No, he created a moment, a specific moment which will never be repeated.
Absolutely. So they're my favourite to watch, the clowns. And Rob Torres, this is going back to back to my tennis ball running joke. Yeah. And Martin Ewan calls me a scruffy fuck. Yeah.
Well, one of us. I don't know which one. So
This
you were talking
ever
about.
been.
See, I think
Yeah.
I'm slowly becoming a character from Guess Who at this moment. Um,
Right.
so Eva, you're talking about a clown called Eva.
Shiva, like the
Shiva.
god.
Okay.
Shiva Grings. Shiva Grings, his name is, and he is. I don't know where he's from, but he lives in Europe, and he's brilliant pantomime. Yeah, he's on the scene. He's still working there. Yeah. Anyone else know Shiva? We can write it down. Yeah. But yeah, so I like watching the clowns, and that was my running joke with the tennis ball, and I run that in with a hat line. Mike's your hat line, Nick. Here's the thing about hands. I got it to a point when I would shows, because I think that then you get near, for example, the classic "I'm on the bike, I'm going to juggle the sticks," and people would do a really long hat line. And I watched audiences. Like, your best teacher is your audience, right? So if you want to learn, you watch audiences, because they will teach you. And I watch audiences when the juggler would be going to juggle the sticks doing this long hat line, and they would start, I'd see people just start getting depressed, or not depressed, just start, their body language would be about to go, great, he's going to juggle the sticks, to, oh God, is he going on about the bloody money again? I was going to give him a fiver, I'm only going to give him a quid now, because he's just going on and on and on, right? Because people now know what street performing is, right? You don't have to go on and on about give me a fiver, give me a tenner, you know, how much is a pint of beer and all that. People know, right? You can't say nothing. You can't say nothing, but you've got to say something. But if you go on, you will lose. This is my belief. I used to say, when I was doing the streets, I haven't done streets in 5 years, but there was, I'd use the word honest a lot. Right, I'd say, you know, I'm an honest person, you're honest people. Hands up if you've never seen a street performer before. That's what I say. Hands up if you've never seen a street performer before. Hardly anyone will put their hands up. And I go, see, so folks, look, you're honest, I'm honest. You understand how it works. At the end of the show, I'm going to put my hat down, you know, and for money. And we got that, and then I'd carry on. But it was cleverer than that. You know, I had a weave going through. And then when I started producing all the tennis balls, it was like, if I did this for you in your pub, you'd buy me a drink, wouldn't you? I'd say, yeah, that might be worth £1. And I produce one ball, £1, £2, £3, £4, £5, as all the balls would come out. Folks, if that's worth a fiver, how long's this going to last? And I'll lift up the hat and this one would come out, right? And I'd go like that. But I'd weave the money line through subtly, like a car salesman would.
Yeah. But also as well, what you're doing is you're taking the idea of asking for money,
it's true,
but you're putting it
subtly rather than frozen.
I'm still here, mate. Your sound's going to be peculiar. Are we still here?
Yeah. You said, I heard you said you're taking the idea for money and then your sound cut out.
Yeah, so you're taking the idea for the hat line and for the money, and you're weaving it into the work, which is, I think, something which is, you can see people who've really constructed a whole piece of work. They do that very well. The idea of the fact that you're doing this piece of art, it's a piece of fun, but you need to make a living, is something which is it's wove through the work. So you're not doing show, bang. Oh yeah, there's money involved. Show. It's something which is integrated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it weaves through, and then of course you're getting the kid out, you're giving money to a kid and stuff like that. You're doing all that razzmatazz. But I would always say, if I did this for you in a pub, you'd buy me a beer, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right. And like a beer in Australia is $10, right? I want to get the tenors, of course, right? So I'd give a tenner out to a kid. I wouldn't give a five, I'd give a tenner out. But and I go, if you saw this in a pub, you'd buy me a drink, wouldn't you? Any honest person would. And I'm looking them in the eye. I look at them in the eyes when I say all this, and I believe it. And when I say, if I saw this in a pub, wouldn't you buy me a drink, wouldn't you? And then you do a little nod. Salespeople do this. You do a little nod, which makes them nod. So they're going, yes, I would, mate. Fuck, if I saw you do all this shit but I haven't given the finale yet. So they've already bought me a drink before they've seen the kicker. So I go, you buy me a drink, wouldn't you? Any honest person would. And they go, no. And I go, folks, you're honest people. I'm an honest person. That's got to be worth £1. Tennis ball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Folks, that's worth £5. How much is that worth? So the big ball, bounce the big ball, the crowd go crazy. I get my tenors.
Yeah, so you set the premise, you've created a rapport with the people. I'm honest, you're honest, we are collectively similar. You set this idea of the money, and then you give the kicker of bang, 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 joy, joy, joy. Done.
Yeah. And it was like the word honest was a good word.
Do you believe in word resonance? And by that I mean, for example, I never, or very rarely ever, use the word hate in a show. Because I believe.
I believe in that. You take all negativity out.
But I think that when you say a word, like the way I think of it is the word ripples in people's brains. And so even if the word is out of context, the word itself, the feelings it creates ripples through someone's mind. So when I say, I love doing this, I believe that this is a positive thing, that this helps and is good for everybody. That every time you hit those positive words, there's kind of a ripple in people's brains. There's a resonance.
I agree with you. Now, when you say that what you just said then, do you at the end of it say, when you say, I believe that's a positive thing, do you then pause and say, don't you?
I don't, but I don't say that in my show.
And now try that.
But
you could try, but you could try that, couldn't you? And said, I believe that's a positive thing. Or just go, isn't it? Ask them a question. Right, I believe that's a positive thing, isn't it? And open your hands, show you're honest, and give them a little nod, and look at the eyeballs, and they go, "Yeah." That is.
Interesting you say this, right? I was talking to a friend about YouTube videos and about how you get the most views on YouTube, because obviously I'm doing this now. I want lots of people to see it, so I'm talking to people about how it works, and they said the best way to get people to watch your video is by leaving an open-ended question, because it makes people interested. It makes people go in.
Well, people want to engage with the question. That's why New Zealanders say "a" at the end of every sentence, because they turn a statement into a question because they're insecure.
So they're begging for a response to validate. Yeah, it's kind of like the English one would be, "Do you know what I mean?" Or yeah. Spanish you go no.
So let me tell you this story about if it's okay, about Chicago.
Yeah,
it's a funny story. So I was in. Now, who told me to go to Chicago? I think it might have been Tim Eric. Tim Eric might have said, go and do the Taste of Chicago, when I was in America the year before. And I went, what's the Taste of Chicago? And he said, it's a big food festival in Chicago. Go and do it. So I was in London, back in London. And remember, this is before internet, before telephones, all that razzmatazz. And I just thought, right, I'm going to go to Chicago. And I knew a musician who I'd met in Key West who lived in Chicago. So I had a contact, a bass player he was. And he said, so I went, okay, so I just bought a ticket to Chicago. Right, I just got some money one weekend, went to the shop, bought a airplane ticket to Chicago. My mates in London are going, well, where are you going? What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to Chicago. And they go, what? I would do things like this. I just go. I'm in London. I'll go buy a ticket to Chicago. I've never been to Chicago. I know a bloke there. I can stay. So I'm in Chicago, and the Taste of Chicago is a big food festival. It's a big festival downtown. We're in these sort of park areas. And there's a lot of bands, a lot of noise, it's pretty hectic. I got my bag of tricks. I'm walking around, seeing where I can do a show. There was no scene, I didn't know any buskers around. And I found this area, I called it Shithouse Row. It was there was all this grass area, and either side of the grass area was a strip of portaloos. Lovely. Maybe like 70 portaloos either side. And I thought, hang on, everyone's got to go to the toilet, come out of the toilet. There's just grass area in between them. I'll bang out some shows here. So I started doing shows there, right? And in that show, then I was juggling. I get the crowd somehow, and then I would juggle I juggled the apple, did the apple eat, and I did a striptease. So I juggled and ate the apple and to my waist. And I juggled the flames with a straight jacket. And the guy who I bring the straitjacket out. And this is where I really got my act together of if you tie me up quicker than it takes me to get out of that jacket, I'll give you 50 quid, right? So I've got this set up.
And you made that up. That was your thing.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is that a thing now, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, I made that up. I made that up in New Orleans when I was struggling. And when I was telling you when I was in New Orleans, I couldn't get a crowd. So what I did, I actually got my mate to tie me up in the jacket. I would get a crowd in the jacket in Bourbon Street. Someone to prove it was real. Then I'd say, all right, I'm going to get out of it. Now, if you tie me up quicker than it takes me to get out of it, I'll give you $10 or whatever. Anyway, so I'm in Chicago doing this thing. And then, so the guy's holding the jacket, right? A guy's got the stopwatch. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. When I say go, no, that's it. And I set it up and I go, what I want you to do is tie me up. And I've got no top on because I've juggled and stripped and ate the apple. And then when I say I want you to tie me up, I do a pant strap and I have a pink tutu on. And so when the pant strap hit and I had the tutu on, I went from all right then, geezer, and act like right then, no, watch this, quick wit, London boy, to total gay. So I drew the pant strap and I go, I want you to tie me up. And then I'd start doing these pirouettes and stuff and dancing around with gay.
A kind of contemporary
huge moment, huge.
You be camp, yeah?
Oh, yeah, okay, totally camp. Yeah, camp. Straight people.
You can say gay if you like, but yeah.
I just did, yeah. So I would be campy gay. And I dropped the pants and I would turn completely camp, like commit 100%, go for it. And the crowd, it was a big moment. It was always a big moment. But this is a crowd in Chicago. So I've got a massive crowd. It's 80%, 70% black, right? And black people laugh like popping a champagne cork off a bottle as opposed to cracking a beer can open, which is white people laughing, right? They lost it, right? They lost their mind. And then I used to do this little dance and jump, sort of ballet move. And I saw this bloke on my left, he was massive black guy with a bald head with his posse around him. Or this little gang, women and men. But he was the leader, the alpha, right? Yeah. Massive. The guy was. So I had this idea. So I dropped the pants. I'm in the tutu. The crowd are losing their mind. I do my little dance. And I thought, I'm going to jump on the top of this guy. And I'm going to kiss his bald head, right? So I did my da-da-da-da and I hit air on the last jump with my legs split open. And I coming towards this guy. And as I'm going towards this guy, my brain sort of went, what the fuck are you doing here? You're in Chicago. You're about to go and kiss a big black geezer on the head. But I went, I have to commit, 100%. Of course, all this is happening within a quarter of a second in your head. I jumped onto the guy. I put my legs under his arms, put my arms around his head, and I kissed his big bald head, right? To which he pushed me off going like this. And all his mates around him, old ladies on the floor nearly having heart attacks, laughing. And it was okay. I got away with it because I committed fully onto it. Yeah. And that was a fantastic memory of mine.
Yeah, I assume he went like this playfully to get you through.
And but he was doing like black people, when they react to things like that, they will react more cartoony and larger than all white people.
I will, for intent, clarify. Potentially, culturally, the black people you met in that area reacted in that way. Because I know lots of black people who are really quite, like quiet people. There's a variation, but let's not get into that.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like an audience, like if you go to a black church, they're more animated than if you go to a white church.
Yes, very much. Very much so.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But anyway, so that was me taking a risk doing the tutu thing. I did the tutu thing for years.
One of the things I find interesting about that is something which I heard years ago, which I think helped me a lot, and it's got me into a lot of trouble, is committing to a joke. You have to commit to your jokes. If you're going to start doing something, you have to see it through.
If you're going to start doing risky shit, you've got to go all the way, like Pepe nicking the car, or me jumping on that dude. Or another time in Surfers Paradise, a truck came through, a rubbish truck. The rubbish men came through my crowd. And I was with Petra then, and she's someone you should get on here, Petra Massey. She was a great act. I can tell a great story with her on the same pitch, actually. I switch it. So Petra was doing a show on the same pitch in Cavill Mall, talking about committing, and a police car drove into the crowd, to which she stopped the car, got the crowd round, and polished the old, polish the thing, do the windscreen and all that. Then she put her hat towards the policeman in his car, right? And then she pretended she got dragged in by the policeman in the car. So her legs are sticking out of the driving side, but she's got her head face down on the cop's crutch on the other side. And people are losing it. Then she climbed out through the other window, right? So she's climbed right through the car. Remember, she just had her face down on the crotch of the other copper. Then as she got out the car and she got them to give her a round of applause, she was like this.
That's filthy. That is
that was Petra.
Filthy.
It was Petra. And another thing with Petra in Byron Bay, we used to do shows in Byron Bay up on the grass there by this pub. And she tied up in a little bag. She'd be in the bag with her head sticking out the bag. It's an act that Jane very so her head was in chains. So she was only like, 2.5 feet tall, really. They picked her up. Two guys in the crowd picked her up, took her into the pub, put her on the bar. The crowd came into the pub, and she's on the bar just giving it all this, and finish the show on the bar of a pub. These things don't happen in theatre, right? These things don't happen in theatre, in comedy clubs. And that's one thing, like Lee was saying, I think, was the wonderful thing about the street is there are moments that happen when you get and you have complete silence and you don't know what's about to happen. The kid's crying or a drunk's come out or whatever has happened. And then you deal with that situation. And if you get it right, you get this explosion of laughter and energy, and everybody knows that wasn't set up.
Yeah, and they went on the journey with you. They saw you. They saw you in shock for that brief second, and then think, and then deal with it.
Yeah, you get someone coming out, a tramp coming out and having a piss in the middle of your show. That doesn't happen when you play the Palladium.
No, it doesn't.
Not that I played the Palladium yet. But.
One day, mate. One day. Just because everyone can hear you play with your hands. Can I just get you to lift your hands for a moment so everyone can see what the sound? Fuck off. Oh, no, I can hear the sound.
I was just doing this right with the cards. I stopped. So on the streets you have these moments which can't be repeated, and there's so many of them, and it makes you such a better performer. I think when you learn how to deal with these situations. And street performers, we're a family, aren't we, Matt? Like we're like sailors. Everyone's hit the rocks and had their sheets ripped, right? Like a sailor. So we've all been in the shit, so we all help each other out.
Yeah, and we sometimes we like to watch other friends in the shit because we've been in it too. I have particular joy watching people's shows, and when something happens, when the guy comes into the show to take a piss, and this is one of the things I think does separate the two kind of schools of performance you have at the moment. You have a school of performance on the street where it's kind of schooled and they believe that it should be sterile. And I'm doing a piece of work, like stand-up nowadays. I'm delivering a piece of work and it goes from A to B, and when you interrupt it, it fucks it up. And the other school of people are, bring me the chaos. I want weird things to happen because that's when interest.
Yeah, the clowns are the best. The clowns rule all. I saw Pepe once in Covent Garden. There was a samba band. Maybe they were booked in by Alternative Arts or something. Anyway, there was a big samba band, with the steel drums on the side of the pitch. If you looked at the Punch and Judy, they were on the left-hand side, and noisy, like you can't, phenomenal noise, right? And everyone was like, bloody samba band, they got a big crowd, they're playing their drums and drummers and because they couldn't work. Got into the rhythm samba band, didn't talk, pulled a huge edge dry and pulled the show off because he didn't talk.
And most modern acts nowadays will be crushed by that.
Yeah, and then you've got the modern acts nowadays who, and I've seen this in Melbourne, they come down. I've seen acts in Melbourne. I mean, there's been a big, in the last 20, 15 years, big influence of street magicians, you know, from the David Blaine and then Gazzo and all that. Anyway, I've seen magicians out there in Melbourne with a crowd of 20 people with an amp bigger than my suitcase. And I'm like, and I'm old school, right? But learn how to work without a mic, because if you don't learn how to work without a mic, when you're doing your show and you've got your mic on and the batteries break or something stops, I've seen acts do this. They go out there and then they got a crowd, they're doing their stuff, something goes wrong with their microphone system, they freeze, they don't know what to do, it's basically take it off, throw it down, carry on. Yeah. If you have learn how to project your voice, how to use your voice properly and your body language, change your body language. I've even seen it in theatres. As I said, I saw this. I work on cruise ships a lot now. Well, I don't work at the moment, but I have been doing a lot of stuff on the sea. I've seen an act once go out there on stage in front of whatever, 800. His mic cut out. He freaked out. The stagehand came out, gave him another mic. There was silent, he had no show bit then. It was, it was all stopped. So someone gave him another mic, clip-on mic or whatever. The stagehand walked away, he could talk in. Then that mic cut out, right?
Stop again.
And then stop again. And then someone gave him a handheld mic, but he couldn't do his thing. He was a magician with a handheld mic. Someone gave him a stand, and it was all confused. And then a thing happened to me a month or so later, and I was on the same ship with the same stagehand, and my mic cut out, and the stagehand, well, as soon as it cut out, I just used my voice. It's a big theatres on ships. I just hit the top, play the clock as we call it, play the top, okay. And I took my voice right out there, and so I orated with the power of the voice, carried on. Stagehand came out, I made some jokes, they put the mic on, and applause to the stagehand, we carried on. And I got really nice comments from the stagehands saying how I just carried on.
They love it when you don't make the life hard.
Well, no, but you don't stop. It's like, that's why yes. I think on the street, and any old school people would say the same, try some shows out without your mic. Because Covent Garden isn't Covent Garden, Matt, isn't any noisier than it was 40 years ago.
Are you sure about that?
Okay, what noise is there on the West Piazza right now?
Right now, fuck all. But
no. But in a normal show, there's noise coming out of a couple of bars.
There's noise coming out of the bars. There's chit chatter, but I think maybe it's not the noise. But maybe I'd argue
the same noise.
Maybe I'd argue the focus is different rather than noise.
No, the focus is of course different because we have people who have phones and different stuff now. But you can create. But your job is to create the attention, right? So the noise that there isn't any. It's not any louder than it was, right? Maybe a touch, but it's not any louder than it was 30 or 40 years ago, right? And so why can't we go out and do shows with just our voice now?
Well, we can.
Because you're so used to but people are so used to using the mic.
But I will say this, like even for my own personal thing, I can do a show. Thank you. I can do a show without a mic, but I can't put the detailed intonation into jokes that I can do with a mic.
No, I agree with you. I can be funny with a mic. Yeah, because you can talk very quietly like this, and you can talk. 100%. I can be funny with a microphone. 100%.
You can drop notes and sentences, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know where that question started. That one.
So we're talking about differences in Covent Garden now, then cruise ships, voice. I'm not sure.
The microphone. We were talking about the microphone thing, and then
I mean, I'm a decent way down the bottle of wine at this point, so
All right, my tea. It's early in the morning here. It's my birthday still, right? So we've been talking for a couple of hours. We can keep talking more to people.
Well,
We
we've
can
had,
talk.
as far as I know, we've had 10 viewers from start to finish, and I think they're the same viewers,
All
same
right.
guys watching. So we've
All
got
right.
our
Hello,
crew is
guys.
going to listen
I
to
can
you.
carry on. We can carry on a little bit more if you like.
Well, Nick, if you want to carry on, please carry on.
I don't know if everyone wants to keep listening. I keep talking. I've got nothing to do.
The thing you have to do with this is when you ask that question, it's a weird thing. It takes 30 seconds for replies to come in. So you ask the question, and then what I've learned is you have to talk for 30 seconds until you respond to what's going on. So I'm going to not help, but help. I need a pee again, Nick. I'm going to leave you be for a moment.
Okay, I do a card trick for you guys. Here we go. I do a I don't know if you can see the cards. There, no, you can't see the cards. See the card? I don't know. He's laughing while he's going to the toilet, Matt. I can hear him, which must mean he's either looking at his willy.
I can hear you.
I don't know. You can. I'm trying to do a card trick, but there we go.
Earphones, so I can hear you, but I can't
Yeah. Mike said your birthday again. You've got to guess how old I am.
I'm going to guess how old you are now. I think I've got it.
Right, go on. See if anyone can guess how old I am.
You were 16 when you went to work in Covent Garden in the early 80s.
15.
Which is 15, which is 40 years ago. So you're at least 55, 56.
Okay, he says 55, 56. I'll reveal it in a bit, and then.
Okay, people in the comments, please put your guesses down in the comments.
But this is interesting. This is Mike said 52. Mike's wrong.
I tell you what, if you get it right, people,
I
will give you a prize. I will send you a prize. I don't know what the fuck it is yet, but I will send you a prize if you get it right.
Oh, there you go. You can get a prize from Matt if you get it right. The first person who gets it right down there.
Prizes.
Mike got it wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
And then no, MJ got it wrong.
Well, let's talk. Let's talk for a bit. Let's let some answers go down, and then we can deal with them all at one point. Yeah. So let's say it. So in terms of your life, Nick, in terms of your advancement, you've done Covent Garden. You've gone from Covent Garden. You've moved to America. You've gone through America. You've travelled around, and then after you've gone to America, what's happened to you then? How's your life? 63, Mike, you cheeky bastard.
Yeah. So I went to America on that trip. To America, then went back to London. Then I hung out there. Then I went back to America. I was in San Francisco again in the winter, and I was, what the fuck am I doing in San Francisco in the winter again? I'm an idiot. So
it's
I went
quite north in America, San Francisco, right? It's a snowy state.
It was just cold, and then I went to a Greyhound station. And I said, "Where's the hottest place in America? The warmest place in America?" To which this person said, "Key West, Florida." And I'd heard you could perform in Key West. I just heard that from the word, and so then I bought a ticket on a Greyhound bus. Born in Key West. I arrived in Key West with probably $5 or something. And I saw a guy walk down the street with some juggling clubs sticking out of his bag. I went and said, "Oh, hi, you're a juggler. I'm a juggler." We had a chat. And he said, "You can go to Mallory Square and perform." And back to wherever, I don't know where the fuck I went from there. And I sort of went around to different places. And I came to Europe, went around Europe and England and different countries. And then I went back to then I went to Australia in '89. That was the year after Expo, when Keno had set up the Surfers Paradise operation with Brendan Foley, and we got paid a weekly fee of X amount. We got given a house on the beach, and we did shows in Cavill Mall to collect money in the hat, and we got a retainer fee in a house on the beach. And remember, I'm in my 20s. This is January. I'm from London. This is Surfers Paradise, squeaky white sand, beautiful surf, girls. Oh my fucking God. It was unbelievable. So I did that season there, and then the next year I did another season doing that. Then I went to New Zealand in 1992, which was the Lotto World Buskers Festival.
Just when we went to World Buskers Festival, can you talk a little bit more about Surfers Paradise? I've heard bits and bobs from people. I'm quite interested in what was going on there at the time.
Well, after Brisbane 88, Expo 88, Keno was there with a few other English performers, and they met a guy called Brendan Foley, who worked for the Gold Coast City Council, and they wanted entertainment, like, because the street and Brisbane 88 was massive for Australia in terms of street entertainment. And they wanted street entertainers in their mall. So Keno and Brendan come up with this deal. Keno said, "I get them. This is what it's going to cost you." Brendan then got the money from the council. We went there. Then we do shows in Cavill Mall in Surfers Paradise, and around in some different bars would give us money to do shows and stuff as well. And we do shows there, collect the money in the hat, get paid, live on the beach.
And who was this run by? Who was
it? It was run by the Gold Coast City Council, and Brendan Foley was the guy who was working for the Gold Coast City Council, who loved street performers. He did, right? So he really pitched in to get this deal going, and him and Captain Keno. And yeah, we do shows there, and it was Andrew Elliott was there, Butterfly Man came down. Word got out around the world. This was a pretty good thing. Checkerboard came down for a bit. And Aussie came to, Aussie was there, Merlin came to there, Petra. Was happened in Australia. That's where this Australian scene started to happen. Rich Expo was a walking flower pot in Expo. He's dressed up as a flower pot and was walking around.
Lucky Rich was a flower pot. Lucky Diamond Rich.
Yeah. And then he was
the meanest looking guy in the street was a flower pot.
Yeah, he was a flower in Expo, and then got together with Keno. He came over to London, and then he was one of the first Aussies that was influenced by this influx of European acts or London acts and American acts, whatever, that happened in Expo. And Anthony Living Space was influenced by that as well. So, that's where I went there. And then after that, I went to 92, I went to New Zealand and went for the Lotto World Buskers Festival, which was the first Buskers Festival New Zealand ever had, which was organised by Fergus Aitken, and he was the performer, and another bloke who worked for Got Money, and there was myself, Lee Ross, Lee Hayes, Dave Holder, Silver, I can't remember everybody, but we all did these shows in this festival, and it was a competition. I won that competition, and my prize was a trip to Singapore to do a festival in Singapore. And then I came back to New Zealand, and I won the competition. It was in a small country. I got some television bits and stuff. And then I thought, I'd been to New Zealand before, and I'd already worked out I didn't want to live in England. So I thought, maybe I could try and live in New Zealand. So I went to and I told this story the other day on another podcast thing, but I thought, how am I going to become a New Zealander? So I went to the immigration people, and they had their list of approved occupations. In the approved occupations, it said magicians, clowns, acrobats. And I went, a magician. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So I applied as a magician. I went to the office and said, I want to apply to become a New Zealander as a magician, to which the lady said, well, have you got a degree? I went, no, I have no degree. I left school, started performing. And she said, how does it work? And I said, I don't know. It's on your form. You tell me how it works. And long story short, 4 years later, it's a much longer story, but 4 years later, I got a New Zealand passport as a magician, and no one else has ever done that. So I became a New Zealander as a magician, and then till 2000-ish, 2001, 2, and then I met a girl who lived in Melbourne, and as a New Zealander you can live in Australia. I met Ula Taylor, pavement artist, and where I moved to Melbourne, and I've lived here ever since. And we had a kid. I've got a kid now. We had a kid, and I live in Melbourne, and as a New Zealander you can live in Australia. So that's where it all. And then I created the Auckland Buskers Festival. I started that up. That was all me. That's goes, and then I've started some scenes up in Australia.
How was it, before we go, how was it starting the Auckland Busker Festival? Go through it a little bit. Explain the process.
How did that start?
Themselves. Yeah, just in case we get young people on the channel and they might want to know.
I say how I start. I live in Auckland, and we're Bob McLaren, who now owns the Comedy Cafe in Amsterdam, one of the finest comedians in the world, and Martin Ewan, and we were living and Dave Sheridan, and we were living in Auckland, busking and just surviving, just doing gigs.
Martin Ewan will be on Wednesday. If anyone would like to listen to Martin Ewan, he'll be on Wednesday at 11 p.m. BST.
And Martin Ewan is a real scruffy cunt. If he wants, he's the one who called me scruffy. So anyway, so we're living in Auckland. We're just doing our thing, and then I got a call from a guy called Gary McCormick, who was a TV personality who I knew, and he'd been contacted by a company. They want to have a street performers festival, and for some reason they contacted Gary. Gary contacted me. He said to them, well, I'm the guy to talk to. So I went to talk to this lady called Pam, and she said, and we were sitting there having a cup of tea in a square, a cafe outside. And I never forget this. She said she wants to do this street performing thing. She's got some money from the council, whatever. And I was like, okay. And I said, what do you want? And she said, we're going to have this competition, and we have people doing shows on the sidewalks and stuff like this. To which I said, there was a flute player just on the side. I said, okay, love, do you want that? Like the flute, someone playing a flute, to passers by. I said, do you want that? Or do you want someone standing there with 500 people around them going crazy? Which one do you want? And she went, well, she didn't really know, right? But she's going, I'd like someone on a unicycle standing around 500 people going crazy. I said, I can get that. This is what it's going to cost you. X amount of money, put them up, blah, 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 blah. And she went, I said, if you get that, I'll get you that. She got me what I wanted. I got on the phone, got my mates, and we started the Auckland Buskers Festival. And I was part of that. So I was never part of the money. I didn't want anything to do with the production. I was artistic guy. So I'd get the acts, create the pitches, organize all that bit, because I didn't want anything to do with the other stuff. And then after 10 years, Pam and I had bigger visions for the operation, and that she didn't want to do. And we had some slight disagreements. And I said, okay, this was the 10th year. Living Space was at that year. And I went, okay, Pam, I'm stepping back. She paid me I got paid X amount for doing my job. But I said, I'm stepping back now. If you don't want to do what I want done, my vision, I don't want to do it. And
you didn't want to tread water, right?
Well, I had this vision of blocking streets off, and I'd been around the world. I'd seen festivals. I had visions, right? And then I fired myself, and I don't know whether that's the right word. I just left the scene. It still goes on now, the Auckland Buskers Festival. I hear the stories that I hear, some good, some bad, whatever. And some of it makes me smile in different ways inside. But it goes on. And so, that happened, the Auckland Buskers. Christchurch was already happening that time. And I was part of that. That was
still going on now? Just quickly to check.
Yeah, but Christchurch Festival is going on now, but it's now been taken over by Strut and Fret, who's Australians, and they call it the Bread and Circus Festival. And it's lost its mojo, apparently, from what I've heard. Because it got taken over by a corporate entity. Jody Wright had it going on, and we used to do amazing shows on the Ducks Deluxe, and there was a lot of a good vibe going on there, and it just got so big. I think what happened with Christchurch, it was massive. It got so big. It was the biggest in the world. Jody was an amazing producer, and it got so big that then Jody stepped back. She sold it on to the council or something like that. I don't know all the intricacies. And then the money people, people who just saw, wow, how much money can we make out of this event, came over, and which has, what I've heard, that's all I can say, what I've heard, of late, the last few years, it's now gone into more of a vaudeville cabaret vaudeville festival with a street side to it.
So it's basically
it's a bit like Adelaide Fringe years ago is different than it is now. The Melbourne Comedy Festival is different than it is now. And I think go on.
Is it the commercial aspect with all these festivals that did this? It's the something successful, then the money moves in and it kind of strangles it.
The commercial, it got commercial, and then the people. The only ones that have really kept their own was Edmonton, Dick Finkel's festival, which he was the first one to started that, and now Shelley Switzler runs that show. Still, and it's curated that vibe, the good vibe, right? That's got the good vibe. The commercial status vibe. Even the Edinburgh Festival, as we were saying, it's now got 70 acts queuing up for one spot.
Minimum. Not one spot, 5 spots, but you'll get 90 acts spots,
but whatever.
Spots.
But it's not like Aileen and I sitting on a step going, oh, let's just walk down there and try something out.
Oh, I will say this, though. Like, I was working there last year, and what we're doing now is people are going out and trying to find new pictures, and they are opening up new spaces. You do have those queue places. And
I mean, Edinburgh is its own, probably it wasn't a good example.
So, well, it's not a bad example. It's only recently that people started reaching back out again and trying to
but that happened anyway. But that happened in Christchurch. Anyway, that's what happened to the Christchurch Festival. Yeah. So
okay. So how did you then go from doing the street shows, doing the street festivals, to being, for example, Ozzy Osbourne or doing the cruise ships? What was the journey between the place and street to these kind of more corporate for the Ozzy Osbourne, I assume? And
no, well, the Ozzy, I'll answer that. The Ozzy thing came about because I had long hair, and Annie, can you put on the kettle? Can you fill that up with hot water, please? Thanks.
The home dynamic.
The Ozzy Osbourne thing came about. I had long hair. I looked like Ozzy Osbourne, and I was living in Amsterdam when I was doing a lot of stand-up comedy with Rob McLaren. I was living at Rob's place, and I was watching the telly, and the Ozzy Osbourne show was on the telly, and a lot of people said you look like Ozzy Osbourne, and then I saw the telly show. Right, and I'll never forget it. Ozzy was there, and he goes in his back garden, and he throws like a leg of lamb over at his neighbour, right, because he wants to shut the neighbour up. And I went, shit, that's the sort of thing I do. And I look a bit like him, so I thought I'd try it out. And all I had to do was be Pepe, right? Bloody hell, mate, you're going to be like Ozzy Osbourne. You just talk like a bloody brummie, you know. And I had Pepe's accent because I lived with him for bloody years, you know, and then I put the round glasses on, I had me long hair, and I was, you know, and then I was spitting image for Ozzy Osbourne. So I just did a few gigs as Ozzy Osbourne around. I did a couple of TV ads. I did a couple of corporate gigs with Ozzy Osbourne. Martin Ewan said Frio is another example of a curated non-corporate gig. Yes, Frio Buskers Festival. That's another phenomenal, that's the best festival in Europe. I was about to do that 2 weeks ago, but that got canned. Yeah, that's the other example. Well done, Martin. Now, Matt's gone. Black. Can you type in if you guys can hear me? Yeah, no, if you can hear me, can you type in? Matt, you've gone black. You've gone black, Matt. Where are you? Matt, it's gone black. And yeah, I don't know whether you guys can hear me. Type in. Oh, you can hear me, Mike. Hello, Mike. How are you? All right. Mike's just got back to Canada, and he's living in his van now, self-isolating. Oh, you're back. So the Ozzy Osbourne thing. Yeah, that happened. And then the cruise ships. I got asked about the cruise ships 15 years ago. Rob Torres, actually, the clown with the little box we were talking about, he put me onto an agent. But to be honest, I wasn't ready then yet. And now I look back at it, I was still too rough and rumble. Yeah. And then I got into the ships about 6 years ago. A friend of mine put me on to an agent, and I started doing the ships. And when I started doing them, I'd never used music in my show ever. So my first show on the ship, I had no music or no lighting. I just had house lights up. It's me, 1,000-seat theatre, and did the shows. And then I got to the point and I started adding more music, adding lights. I liked about doing the cruise ships is creatively, the streets was killing me, because I had my act in, it's long, money, it made money. It was tight. It was a tight operation, right bang on, right. And I couldn't get out of the tightness. I needed to make money. That thing made money. I still had a bit of freedom of my verbal freedom and stuff. But when it got near to the last 10 minutes, when I'm about to bat them, that just locked down. The words came out of my mouth.
Was it just money? Was it love? Was it the fact that you couldn't handle?
I had to make a living. Remember this, right? You got to make a living.
You could do one show, make a living, and one. I'm asking this not because of you, because of myself. Yeah. I'm asking a question about myself and kind of bouncing off you. You could do one creative show and one corporate show, one money making show. Why didn't you?
Because it was.
I'm asking that because I don't do it.
I've been doing this thing so long, right? They got, and in the streets of Melbourne, I had a missus, I had a kid. I had to make money, and I could do that, but I had this thing that we'd sit on a pitch. I'd still be creative. The beginning parts of the show was creative, but then when it got into the crux of the matter, it was lockdown, get the cash, right? And so I could have done that 3 times and then gone down the way and done something, loopy. Right, I decided not to. There's no reason why. Maybe just decided not to. Right, I wasn't 19 anymore, trying different things out. Right.
Well, I found the same thing, and I think that's something that's very common between all of us.
But so getting on the ships, Matt. So I was creatively getting stale. I'd go to do the comedy clubs, or I'd do other things to try different things out. But then when I got on the ships, it was fantastic because I started learning how to use music, how to use light, how to change emotions using both of those things, how then different things, how to have a blackout to go off, have a costume change. And now on the ships, some of the ships now we have to do 2 different 45s. When I started, I didn't even think I had 45 minutes of clean material. I didn't think I had that, right? I was scared shitless. Now I've got easy 2 45s of good quality, clean. Now we've got to be clean. You've got to look sharp. You can't do any innuendos. You've got to have good tricks. And
you can't even infer smut. You have to be completely clean.
You got to be really smick and crisp. But then now I've got a grip on it, and I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying doing those creatively, because I've always been thinking about, what can I do now? How can I change that? How can I add that? And remember, the crowd ain't leaving. On the street, the crowd can leave. So when you take any street performer and you put him inside, some of the best cruise ship variety acts are street performers, right? Steve Rawlins, Leo, street performers who've got onto the cruise ships, some 20 years ago they got it. Because if you can keep a crowd on the street with your transitions and stuff, you 5,000 people, whatever, they ain't leaving. You've got a big edge over people who haven't done the street.
But then there's the issue of content, because a lot of people in the street, especially myself, my content is play, so I'm devoid of actual content.
Yeah. To quote Tony Roberts, he had a great line. Tony Roberts said to me, he said, a Covent Garden act is 10 minutes of material squeezed into a 40-minute set.
Yeah, it's completely right. And I'd like to believe that those 30 minutes, there's a lot of content happening in those 30 minutes, but the content is site-specific and is playful to what's going on. And you can't do that
on the stage. Yeah. And so what I've learned is, well, but there's tricks you can do on the stage that you can't do on the street.
Like?
Because it's there's loads of routines I do now that wouldn't work on the street, on the stage. Mental predictions, some things I do with cards.
I tried a mentalism show on the street.
Some stand-up comedy bits. There's stuff that won't work on the street. It's too subtle. It just wouldn't work.
You need to have broad appeal on the street, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, like you can. I do in 45 minutes. I do between 7 and 10 tricks, right?
Yeah, as opposed to 45 minutes of street where you're doing.
Well, 45 minute. My 45 minute would do. I'd start off with a little thing with a coin, do a current restored rope, do some card stuff, do a thing with a kid, and do the cups and balls. Right? Remember the old days? All I would do is get tied up in a straitjacket and chains. Whatever, people would go out there. When you go inside, you have 100% focus. So you can spend 3 minutes setting something up. 8 minutes coming on stage or playing with something. You can do different stuff on the stage than you can do on the street.
And so you believe on stage that
I still close with the cups and balls in a 1,000-seat theatre.
Yeah, and especially your cups and balls, it's very visual and it's got a great narrative through it.
Yeah, and I do it without screens. I've got me in a spotlight on doing the cups and balls. Yeah, that's my big close. Yeah, I'm doing the racket as well.
Oh, the tennis racket.
The racket. Yeah.
Fair enough. It's a fucking racket, that racket, mate.
It is a racket.
So do you believe Fuck, it's so... I hate that fucking trick. Even though I do it and my career's based around it, I fucking hate that trick. Nonetheless, do you believe you can take more time on stage then? Do you believe you can sit down and relax more in the empty moments?
Oh, absolutely. You can take so much more time. They're not going anywhere. The crowd ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, they're there to watch you.
On the street, you're probably going to take a minute. On the stage, you can take 4 minutes. You're doing a theatrical presentation. You're not hush.
So, Nick, I think we have now reached the longest interview I've done so far. We are on 100 minutes plus 51 minutes comes to 1 hour and a half. We're on 2.5 hours at this moment. I'm more than happy to talk more if you want to talk more. If you'd like to. Would you like to have more stuff you want to say?
I'm enjoying this. We can talk if people want to. We can talk another say 15. I've got to. I've got to be. You've got some people writing there. Martin, you and Mike Dada. Shall I talk some more, guys? And Martin or Mike, is there any stories you want me to say? Martin I met in New Zealand at Sweetwater's Festival, I think it was, in 1988. And Martin Ewan is a stilt walker. He had a thing going when he was on the stilts, and he had a girl who was a puppet. So he was up high with a marionette, and she was down low. Oh, here's a good story. With Martin. Martin, you'll like this one, mate. Martin, Rob McLaren, who owns a comedy club in Amsterdam there. Rob, Martin, and they used to be in Stalker together as a stilt group from New Zealand. Martin, Rob, myself, and Dave Sheridan. We lived at the bottom of Queen Street, which is a hill road in Auckland. We lived in the top flat. We had a lovely apartment, like a studio apartment place up there. And they had the Santa Parade. It's a great street. So every year in Auckland, they have a Santa Parade where the streets just packed with punters, hundreds of thousands of them, right? And then and the roads are blocked off, and then down the road comes, different floats, and then Santa, right? Different cars from the Variety Club and stuff like that. So we come up with this idea. We thought, hang on, a Santa Parade. We lived at the bottom of the hill, remember? We're going, it's a mile. The Santa Parade was huge. It's huge. We said, the roads are going to be blocked off. There's going to be punters everywhere. They're going to be coming down from the top of the hill, and it's going to take them whatever, an hour to come weaving through all these other roads down to where we are. So we thought, let's go and hustle. Let's go and do the Santa parade. So the four of us went out. We went up the hill. We're in the middle of the road. There's no cars, right? And the parade doesn't come down. It's just punters, right?
Yeah.
So we went out there and I did fire eating. Martin was there. Maybe Martin wasn't there. Maybe Rob was there. Maybe it was just me, Rob and Dave. I thought it was Martin, but Rob was on stilts. And we all did like a 5-minute bit. I think it wasn't you, Martin. I think it was Rob. But we just did like 5 minutes each. Boom, boom, boom. Hat them either side because they're all behind barriers, the punters. Walk down the road. No, we just do one show between us, 10-minute show, right?
But when you do a 10-minute show, are the other guys hatting as you're doing it? So you're kind of one.
Yeah, we're just sort of hustling, yeah. And then we got Rob on stilts, and he had a pole with a hat on the end, so we could reach over the back of people and collect. So we would do these 8-minute bits or 10-minute bits, a trick each. Yeah. Then go down the road 50 meters, do it again. Down the road 50 meters, do it again. Down the road 50 meters, do it again. Before the floats came. We get to the bottom of the hill. We went into our apartment, up the lift, go to the top. We had a table tennis table. We poured all the money we just hustled on the table tennis table, right? Sparked up a couple, cracked a couple of beers, leant over the balcony, looked down as the parade came through.
Happy fucking days.
So that was great. Yeah, I think it was Rob McLaren. I don't think it was you, Martin. Yeah.
Oh, well, Martin, it was nice. It was nice he got mentioned anyway.
Yeah. No, Martin's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine.
Well, as I say, Martin will be interviewed at 11 p.m. British summertime on Wednesday. If anyone would like to tune in for Martin, looking forward to it.
Right. So, any questions or anything else? I mean, I can talk. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying what you're doing as well, Matt. I think it's a great thing what you're doing.
Well, it's keeping me sane, mate. I'll be honest.
And the Covent Garden era. Oh, yeah, go on. The first 2 days of the corona.
Well, the first few days of the quarantine, I was going fucking mad, mate, because I thought I was the smartest guy in the room. I do nothing.
You live by yourself, don't you?
With street chairs, more or less. I love a point where I couldn't walk out and do it, you know. And so the first week, I saw, you know, that feeling of mentalness where you're just kind of pushing it down to your chest. And doing these interviews has been the best thing ever. I've always said
it's fantastic, yeah. And I've watched a lot. I've loved it as well. I've always said that street performing is the most secure job in the world because it doesn't matter what happens, I'll always be able to make a quid. Well, that's changed. And it did drive me. It's driving me a bit batty as well because I think a lot of us do shows because let's get down to it. We want contrived admiration. Because we didn't get our love as a kid, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people. But a lot of people. So when you haven't got your show, you haven't got your applause. It's my girlfriend who just gave me my cup of tea. There, she's in business as us, and we were discussing this. When you haven't done shows, I go a bit back because I'm like, I want to do my show, right? This is the longest I've not done a show, and there's many of us that's out there since time began, right? So I go a bit batty, and so I miss doing the shows. And I was really looking forward to doing the Fremantle Street Performing Festival, as Martin wrote here, another example of a curated non-corporate festival, fantastic street festival. And I was invited to do that this Easter, this year. And I was really looking forward to doing that, hanging out. Matt Ricardo was going to be there and some others.
One of the classic UK jugglers.
Yeah, well, he was there back in the day when we were starting. You know, with Alex.
Was he doing the tablecloths? So when Matt began, was he doing the tablecloth?
No, when he began, he wasn't. But then he got into the tablecloth. That wasn't his first ever thing he did. He was doing juggling shows. But then he got his tablecloth became his thing, right? Like the tennis ball thing became my thing, right? Rob had the little box, right? Everyone's got their different, different people have their different things. Pepe's thing was Stella.
Just on this note, can I just say, there was a young magician, I won't mention his name to shame him here. We saw him on Magic Corner doing tennis balls, and we told him off. We said, no, you don't do that. That's Nick's thing. He wrote that. That's his thing. Fuck off. No. How do you feel about material being shared and moved around?
I think, well, I can't stop you doing. So I'm pulling tennis balls out of cups. I didn't
you
know
can't
anyone.
stop
I didn't know anyone else.
How do you
I didn't know
feel
anyone.
about it?
I didn't. I'd never seen anyone pull tennis balls out of cups before. But I've been asked by a few people. I've been asked by a few people if they can use my routine, and I've said no. If it's public, my attitude is this: if it's in a book, you can use it. I read magic books. I read older.
Gazzo, I wrote specifically to do that.
Yeah. Gazzo, I wrote every line that I say. Yeah, well, I've read old magic comedy books as well, Gazzo. But funny, Gazzo looks like Cellini as well, and he's dressed up. But but when my running joke, Gazzo's a great guy. Well, the funniest of them all.
He is a great guy.
Gazzo helped me out a lot.
Hardest worker I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's because you never made that much in the hat. I only have to do 2 shows a day. But
put your claws away. Put your claws away.
Now, Gazzo, I've known Gazzo helped me out. When before he had his stroke, he was one of the greatest card cheats in the world. Phenomenal operator. Phenomenal.
I heard you guys got kicked out. Hang on a minute. Before he card cheats, I talked to Paddy Potato, and he told me stories about you guys getting kicked out of casinos.
Who's Paddy Potato?
Paddy, Irish Paddy. He's a rotund guy.
Yeah. I know Paddy. Well, he has to. I got him on the streets. So
many people did. He told me stories about you guys in casinos, and you were cheating the casinos, and apparently you guys got gently persuaded to leave.
I got thrown out of a casino for being drunk and a bit lippy.
Were you dancing over a line? Somebody said you can't step on this line.
Yeah. I was drunk. I was with Tony Robertson and I. Yeah, we were drunk and a bit lippy, but not for cheating. But Gazzo going back as a card cheat. His card mechanics were phenomenal. But going back to what you were saying about people stealing material.
Yes, yeah, by all means.
Like the tennis ball thing, if someone does that running joke, if I know what you want to see, which is my running joke, I'm going to be all over them, right? That's my bit. Well, I'm sorry, that's my bit.
Yeah,
and that's okay, And if someone wants to pull tennis balls out of cups, I heard there's a guy called Todd Various who does it. I can't stop you doing that, right? And he was one of he used to carry Gazzo's books. Gazzo taught Todd. Todd was a butcher, used to carry Gazzo's books when Gazzo used to go to magic lectures. So with that thing of, we all, when we start, take ideas from what we've seen, which is an okay thing, to steal, borrow, whatever you want to call it. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, do what that guy's doing. But don't be doing what that guy's doing in a year. Take that. Other acts, come up with your own ideas. There is on the street, right? Stop, stay, watch and pay, right? Make them stop, make them stay, make them watch, make them pay. There's a formula on how to do that. Whether you eat a sword, whether you do a somersault, whether you do whatever you do, there is a formula, right? And you can use that formula. But then what you do in between, as I just said, Billy the Bean, Sid Rasputin, John McKenna, Mike Mulcairn, Tim, all these people from the old days. Randolph the Remarkable, you ever heard of him? Randolph the Remarkable, big fat guy, and his thing, huge stomach. His thing, those things you wash your dishes with in the round bowls, the plastic bowl you put in the sink, to wash the dishes with. When he had to see through one of those, he had water. He put water in it. He leant down. He took his whole fat stomach, stuck it into that, right? Stood up, so the suction of the stomach in this would make the thing stick towards his stomach, and then his fat stomach with the water swizzing around. That was his act.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you don't have to get with people. Andre Vincent, Lee said it about when he could do the breadsticks. Lee talked about Andre. But you don't have to do what the others are doing. You can take those ideas, but use your mind and go. And it might take 100 goes to get this stupid idea that you've got of the baguettes, Petra Massey and Charlotte. They used to get they'd stand on each other's shoulders. The bottom one would squirt like water. The top one would squirt water out of her mouth. They'd have two punters with umbrellas dancing around, and they'd spin around, and that was their finale, the human fountain. It was just mental.
It was just anesthetic.
So and use these ideas that people doing. But if you want to just copy and stay as a copier, you ain't going to go anywhere. For people, you ain't going to go into any levels. You're just going to be, there's another guy doing those lines on a unicycle. If you want to get into cruise ships, stand-up comedy, or you want to take your thing or have respect from other acts, if I ran a festival, there's acts I wouldn't book. Right? I'm not going to book five. I'm not going to book 5 acts all with the same lines, am I? No.
Well, I think that's potentially the problem Covent Garden has now. Potentially, is that we do have.
Last time I was there, I saw 3 acts in a row with unicycles all doing the same show. Now,
and I'm to assume, back in your day, you had people coming there to see the culture. You didn't just have tourists. You had people coming there to see the interesting work, right?
Yeah, and we had and the people, the actors, and it was just bizarre. Yeah, it was fantastic. We were all trying stuff out, and it's become a job now. Who said that? Someone said that on one of the podcasts. People living in London, they go to Covent Garden, they sign on the list, they do their show, they go home. They might as well get a job in McDonald's, right? Not McDonald's, but you know what I mean. They don't. Yeah. Who was saying this? That's what Dave Sutherland said. This. The great thing with street performing, you can go anywhere in the fucking world, right? And so if you just want a job and you stay, there's a lot of acts in London. They're still in London. And if that's what they like, that's cool. And no problems. I don't judge, right? Just observe. It's like, but you've got an act. If you've got no ties, why not? And it's fucking freezing in November. Why not go to Australia or New Zealand or South America or Spain or somewhere warm for those 3 months? Have a wonderful experience in life. Meet some new people. Have a good laugh. Learn some new things, and then come back to London. Why not? But some people like the
Got to pay your mortgage. Got to pay your mortgage, mate.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You got a 200 quid boat.
Yeah. I know. I'm lucky for that, at least. I'm not saying people got to pay the mortgage is a bad thing, but I mean it by this. People have got to pay the mortgage. You have to make regular money. So you can't take chances. You do have to treat it like I go Monday, I go to Friday.
But then again, you can your house, you could pay that mortgage, and you could go away. There's always ways out if you want to. If you want to do that, So, people say to me, you're so lucky to do this. So, no, I just wanted to do something else, right? If you want to stay where you are and just do the shows, fantastic. If you want to travel around the world travel around South America in a bus teaching kids circus tricks, fantastic. Yeah. What hurts me with this virus thing, and it's got me a couple of times, and I'm not a depressed geezer, is there is nowhere in the world now where there are shows.
No, nowhere. No,
like there is the punters, and I feel empathy towards the audiences. There's no live theatre, there's no rock and roll, there's no street performing, there's no comedy clubs, there's nothing. So these punters, and they don't know, maybe they don't know they're missing it, but they haven't got, and that makes me cry a little bit. That's really sad.
But I think people do know they're missing it. I have this feeling, right? And by being on the canal, I see people going out for their walks every day. I see where people go for their walk. People are hankering to get back out. They want to be out there. They want to be in life. And that's why when I hear the crazy conspiracy theorists saying this is the end of freedom.
Hey, have you ever thought about doing something on your boat, standing on the boat? If you've got people walking down the canal and having a 100%. QR reader on a stick, so they don't have to give you money, they can QR you. Right? And you could just stand there doing little 5-minute skits.
So this is my idea for the boat. I don't want to make money off it at the moment because my idea is I'm getting benefits. While I'm on benefits, I'm not going to earn money from what I do, really. I'm going to ask for the channel. I've asked, and if everyone's watching, if you can support the channel, it does cost me money to do it. If you can go to Patreon or PayPal, help support it. It costs me about £100 a month to run the channel.
Well, write that in there. Write that in the bottom there. What your Patreon link is, and then people can go
definitely
on to
will.
Patreon.
I'll put it in there at the end. If you want to go on to
how much is Patreon? How much is it to Patreon?
You can put what you want on there. So Patreon is a monthly fee to a patron, so you can put £2.
Well, I'm going to do that because I've enjoyed watching these, and if it costs me a couple of quid a month or whatever it is, whatever the price is, I will. I think everyone should do that. Yeah, but I was just thinking on the boat. We're talking about punters wanting to watch shows.
Yeah,
you could just have some music, and you could have some music, mate, on your boat, and just stand on top and practice some juggling. Just do a little practice, and have people walking past. You like a walk by thing.
I'll tell you my plan. I don't want to stop people on the canal path because then they'll group together and then suddenly it's like, oh, I'm making the world worse. But what I am going to do is there's bits of the canal that are in front of massive flat blocks. And when I was putting it in my boat, because I've got a big stick and I push my boat around with a stick. And when I'm pushing my boat to make myself feel happy and I'm pushing it, I play really loud music. And I play cheesy fucking stuff like Madonna or fucking silly shit. And I was putting it past the other day, and when I was playing this silly shit, I'd shit you not, every person at this flat block in front of me came outside, smiled, clapped, filmed, and started dancing. And so my idea is I'm going to put, it was a beautiful moment. And so I'm going to punt up to this flat block, and I've written a sign on my roof, huge sign saying, my phone number, text a tune, I am now your DJ. And so I'm going to go to the flat block for half an hour, and I'm going to start the tunes, I'm going to shout everyone out with a mic, and I'll say, guys, for half an hour, if you don't like it, I'll be gone in half an hour. If you do want it, for now, everybody is flat block. You get to have a joined experience. Text a tune, text your flat. I will shout out to you, and we can all join in together just for a little moment.
And it ain't about the money; it's about the niceness.
It's about the niceness. It's about making the world a bit better during this hard time.
And that's a great thing with street performing and why we do it. It's making the world a better place. Niceness, and I think as long as in life, as long as you're nice, right? I actually used to say that. I say this still at the end of my show on the ships. I say, if everyone in the world nice, I say this is my little bat at the end. If everyone in the world could be nice to everyone at least once a day, we can stop the stupid wars and the stupid racism, right? I get applause for it, but I do believe that. Don't be a cunt, right? D-back. I've got this saying called D-back, D-B-A-C. Just D-back. Don't be a cunt.
I tell you what, Nick, I think that's a perfect moment for us to tie this very long, lovely, and interesting interview.
By the way, I'm 53 today. I was born 53? Today, 53 years ago. If you realize it, right? So Jeff Hurst got 3 goals in. I reckon my dad came home from the pub pissed, shagged my mum because my mum hates football. Right, and I was talking to Shandy about this as well because Shandy's birthday was the other day. Right, we're World Cuppies. Birthday was around this time. He's the same age as me, 53. So 53 years ago, there was a lot of kids who were conceived 53 years ago after England won the World Cup.
That was the England. Oh, they think it's all over. It is now. That one.
That was England-Germany when Jeff Hurst got the hat trick. Right, that was 53 years. 53 years and 9 months ago.
You're a baby of drunkenness.
So and my mum hates football, so I reckon that's what happened. But so someone said 53 there. I think Scott did.
Scott said 53.
So you got to send Scott. You got to send Scott something.
Scott is going to get a prize. Mike said 63. Which I think, shame on you, Mike. Shame on you. How unkind. Look at the man.
No, Mike's got bad eyes. He's got bad eyes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mike Dardar, great guy, one of the best balloon twisters I've ever seen.
There you go, Mike. So, Scott, there is a prize coming to you, Scott. I'm going to figure out what it is when I'm.
And Matt, you write down your thing for the patron thing, so people can donate to this channel and we can watch more of us old geezers. And remember,
so I tell you what, Nick, do me a lovely thing, Nick. Give a last note while I find all the information I'm going to post, and just give a last note for everyone to listen to. Something nice for people to hear. I know you can talk. I don't feel bad.
My philosophy as a street, well, forget the virus world, but in the normal world, as a street performer, if you're new to this thing and you're thinking about doing it, my opinion is this: you can never fail as a street performer, ever. If you go out there and make nothing, you've learned what not to do. If you go out there and make a quid, right, you've been paid a quid to learn what not to do. And you can do that 10 times, and you can do stage times, everything. You can do more and more shows. If you make, say you made £1 a show, and your show was 15 minutes long, and you did 10 shows a day, that's 2.5 hours work, and you've made 10 quid. You can actually live off 10 quid, bottom end, of course, bag of rice and live in a squat. But then you go to the other level where your shows get really good, and you can make 100 quid or whatever, X amount in your show, and more and more and more, and your shows get better. So stage time, you cannot, so my opinion is this: you cannot fail as a performer, you can only win. It's impossible to fail. The community is fantastic. You can make money, and you can learn a great craft, and you can have freedom away from the Babylon of society.
So Nick's gone quiet for me. Nick, can you hear me? Not if you can hear me.
Yeah,
give me a little nod if you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me. I can't hear you, but I think it's the perfect moment to tie everything up. Nick, you have been amazing. So interesting to listen to. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone who's watched all the way through this incredibly long video.
Thanks. That was long, wasn't it?
I love
that. Was long.
Nick, I'm going to call you after the interview. Just say thank you. For now, everybody, thank you. Mwah. Goodbye, 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 and